My wife returned from a work retreat with a hickey. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I'm at loss. How do I move forward? I'm 27M, in a fight with my wife, 28F. We've had fights before but not this bad. I'm at a loss on how to proceed. For context, we're college sweethearts married for almost 6 years. We have a daughter, 4F. Our relationship was never perfect or without challenges. We've faced some family opposition with cultural differences, but we've made it work. She's my first love and my best friend. My wife works in corporate. Her job has annual work retreats that last for about a week. This year was in Vegas. I usually arrange my work schedule and tag along with her, and we make our own trip out of it. We couldn't this year. Our daughter gets major anxiety traveling long distances. We're working on it, but she wasn't budging, and we decided to choose our battles, so I stood behind and held down the fort at home. The change of plans was a bummer because the trip was part of us reconnecting as both a couple and as a family. My wife's work hours have taken a toll, and her work-life balance leaves much to be desired. We entertained the idea of her skipping the retreat. Attendance is optional, but it's generally frowned upon if you don't, and my wife's making connections in her field. She grew increasingly weird. We have a system if either of us is away for extended periods. We keep in contact. For the first day or so, she was herself, but she grew distant. I'd even text her about important stuff and be left on read while she claimed she never saw my text. Whenever we talked, she was rushing me or our daughter off the phone. These were all times she wasn't involved in retreat activities. We were supposed to have a mini birthday celebration for our daughter over FaceTime. Our daughter was excited. It was something my wife promised her because the retreat overlapped her actual birthday. But my wife backed out because she had people up to her room after a seminar. It was like she wanted my permission to break her promise to our daughter. I told her I wasn't offering that nor making her keep her word. She said I wasn't being fair, and this was a networking opportunity. They were business-oriented and wouldn't understand her stepping away for family time. I said her decision is her decision, but she'd have to explain it to our daughter. She promised her that she'd rain check the following day. Our daughter didn't understand and cried. My wife ended up hanging up and leaving me to comfort our daughter alone. That whole incident rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. She didn't keep her word for the rain check either. She was documenting the retreat on social media. One coworker, 23M, was almost in every pic video attached to her hip. In one pic he had his arm too comfortably around her imo. He's a recent hire in my wife's department. She was asked to oversee him. I don't like the guy. He doesn't know boundaries. Once, in response to a work assignment, he texted my wife that she's exactly the kind of woman he needs to keep him in check. My wife had brushed it off. She feels bad for him because he's not fitting in. She took him under her wing during his first retreat with the team. If I'd questioned, she'd say she was tired or networking. There was always something. But I've seen her at these retreats. This wasn't like her. She was just off. The day before her return home, she complained about a bruise on her neck. She stressed it was a bug bite. I didn't actually see the bruise until she came home. I instantly thought it was a full-on hickey. She kinda brushed it off after making a big deal of it over the phone. I didn't push because our daughter was present, but when I was able to confront her, she clung to her bug bite claim. When I kept pushing, she asked what I was trying to imply. I outright said I believed she had a hickey, and I didn't believe she was being honest with me. We had it out then. She was offended and pissed at the accusation. Infidelity has always been a sore topic. Her family has a history of infidelity, so we had a pretty bad fight, and she accused me of looking to pick a fight due to the incident with our daughter's birthday. I told her it had nothing to do with that and everything to do with a hickey on her neck. The fight ended in an impasse. We're still not recovered. She swears it's a bug bite. But I'm not convinced. I've always trusted my wife. I never doubted her, but this bruise doesn't look like a bug bite. It looks like a hickey. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the Vegas retreat. Now she's wearing turtlenecks ever since, and we're caught between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. Communication usually prevails for us, but not now. I think my accusation pushed us to a new level of argument. I'm at a loss here. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Commenter 1. I have been to Vegas and never saw a single bug. It is like dry as fuck, desert-like. Not saying they aren't there, but it's not like she was in the Mayan Riviera. This is all super sus. Don't let her gaslight you. She clearly got a hickey, which is dumb as fuck in itself, probably from the idiot who is too inexperienced to know what he was doing, and preemptively came up with an excuse knowing what it would look like. Out of character behavior. Neglecting her daughter. New young guy hanging off her, that is in photos she knew you could end up seeing, what about what you couldn't see? Eyebrow raising texts. Commenter 2. I used to travel regularly to Vegas several times a year for about 8 years, worked for the gambling industry. I have never seen a bug anywhere in the vicinity of Las Vegas. What I did see though was a lot of drunks and infidelity. I'm not saying she cheated. But he's right to be suspicious. Commenter 3. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never gotten a bug bite that looked like a hickey. Did she show you her phone or provide any proof that could support her innocence or just dismiss you? The extra affection is a common move from guilt-ridden cheaters. Even if we stretch the imagination and believe it is a big bite, she wasn't acting trustworthy, or was she a good mother while the was in Vegas and she needs to address and correct that? Reply, no, I haven't had access to her phone. We usually have an open phone policy, but it's not something we've ever really done. I'm sure it'll be another argument. Yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it, or hang up on them while they're crying. I'm not insecure. My wife's gone on the retreats before. We both work outside the home and have the caring for our daughter. So it's not an imbalance. My wife's work-life balance is out of sorts. She's in the company of other adults plenty. I've been with my wife on these retreats and other social events. I know how she is. She was off this entire trip, nor was it appreciated her entertaining a coworker, who ignores boundaries, having his arm wrapped around her waist like he was claiming her or something. I trusted her when she said she had a bug bite. I got things to help her treat it for when returned. It was only after I saw the bruise in person that there was no mistaking it was a hickey for me, and I questioned her on it. Update. I, 27M, wanted to give an update and thank everyone who reached out. The outside perspectives helped. Things are a roller coaster. I'm trying to process. It took a while for my wife, 28F, and me to have any real conversation about the bruise on her neck. We were stuck between arguing and her showering our daughter, 4F, and me with affection. I rarely saw the bruise because she was turtlenecked up. But I did note the healing process from reddish purple to yellow. There wasn't any more discussion about the Vegas retreat. She made it clear she was done talking about it and that she shouldn't need to defend herself to her husband. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I was done being treated like an idiot, and I wasn't sharing a bed with someone I couldn't trust. So I moved into the guest room. Communication stopped. The silences were palpable. Even our daughter noticed. I'm not proud of that. I try keeping her out of fights. My wife came to the guest room one night and asked if we could talk. I could tell she'd been crying. She said she hated the way things were between us. She felt she was losing me either way. I told her I needed complete honesty. She confessed she hooked up with that coworker, 23M, on our daughter's birthday. The hickey was from him. She was lost in the heat of the moment and didn't realize he was sucking so hard on her neck. By her account, they made out while doing some on top of the clothes stuff, and then he went down on her. It stopped there because he called her by a nickname that I affectionately call her. It snapped her back to the reality of her actions. She went to splash water on her face and saw the hickey. The guy made light of it and made a joke about the hickey being her souvenir. She blew up on him and kicked him out of her suite. Part of the reason she was avoiding me was out of guilt. She said she's coming clean because she doesn't want to hide things anymore. I asked her why she cheated. What was it about that guy she deemed worth risking everything? She claimed it wasn't him specifically, nor is she unhappy with our marriage. She doesn't really know how to explain it, but a part of her feels broken. The more she looks in the mirror, the more she sees her dad, 57M. A cycle of being consumed with work, distant from child, and the infidelity he put her mom, 55F, through. She said her family never talked about anything openly and how when she was growing up, my MIL never addressed anything with her. I said her parents didn't make her cheat. She chose to party up with a guy who constantly disrespected our relationship. These were all her decisions, and she at any point could have chosen our family. She agreed. She wants to blame her parents but realizes this is on her. She apologized for cheating and for entertaining the guy's advances. She said she'll do whatever it takes to repair. Go to HR, quit her job, counseling, anything. She wants to make everything right. I told her I don't know what right looks like or if that's possible for us anymore. I knew we had our problems, but I thought there wasn't anything we couldn't talk out. She insisted we still could talk it out. We didn't have to give up on us. She tried giving this rally cry for our relationship, but I felt very numb. I said I didn't recognize her. Not just the betrayal of our vows but also how she treated our daughter. She's like a stranger. She feels she failed as a wife and mom, but she loves us both beyond words and wants our life together and our family intact. I told her I couldn't give her the answer she wanted and thought we needed to separate and reevaluate. She didn't want separation. She felt we should stay together in our home, but I told her a separation was happening. Either she was leaving the home or I was with our daughter. She consented to leaving so as to best not uproot our daughter so much. She asked for our daughter not to be taken away from her. My wife's staying with my in-laws. I know that's difficult in itself because she doesn't have the best relationship with her parents. One of the hardest parts is the shift for our daughter. Right now, she believes her mom's just busy with work per usual. She hasn't questioned it too much. My MIL called the other day. She made no excuses for my wife, but she's advocating for us to work through it. She told me times when she heard my wife describe me as the anchor she always wanted. She believes there's something worth fighting for if I'm open. Despite some family opposition we faced throughout our relationship, my MIL was always a supporter of us. I'm even more at a loss. I never imagined this kind of betrayal from my wife. She was my safe place. I feel numb yet broken. I'm in love with her. That hasn't changed. But I don't see myself, her, our relationship, or our family the same. Everything's more tense because it's fresh. I think this period of separation is for the best. I'm not sure about divorce. I haven't let myself fully go there. I'm not set either way. I don't know where things go from here, but I'm focusing on our daughter and taking things one step at a time. I feel that's all I can do right now. Thanks again to everyone for the support. It's much appreciated. TLDR Update 4, my wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Commenter 1. Do you think she is still trickle-troughing you? How would the coworker know your nickname for her? Good luck onwards. OP. Also think about this part of your comment whenever your wife tells you she is sorry. Cheating on you is one thing, but your wife's behavior towards her daughter is sickening. Yeah, you don't get to disconnect from being a parent, especially to a minor, for extended holidays. You certainly don't ghost them on their birthday and when you promise to do something special for them and got the child excited about it or hang up on them while they're crying. I was just on a work trip with a coworker who has a couple of little kids similar in age to OP's. He had arranged his travel times to make it easier on them and went back to the hotel to call them every night. Nothing about how the wife is acting is normal or okay. Commenter 2. They didn't stop until he came inside your wife. You know that, right? Commenter 3. She had plenty of time to craft a story where she was less offensive. He went down on her only. Okay. Commenter 4. Yeah, that's a convenient story. It's bad but offers a glimpse of, oh, it's not so bad she didn't really do anything to him. That's just not believable to me. Also, the MIL is not your friend here, OP, she's trying to help her child. Again, don't settle for this treatment. One new update. Thank you again to everyone. I, 27M, couldn't respond to every message, but everything's appreciated. I wanted to provide an update. Things have been a little chaotic with the new status quo after my wife's, 28F, affair, but I'm taking everything one step at a time. My wife and I explained the separation to our daughter, 4F, in simple, concrete terms and reassured her that we both still love her without going into the reasons behind the separation. Our daughter's always been an observant kid, but I don't think the separation has hit her yet. She doesn't see the difference between her mom not being home and her usual busy with work. During visits, she's more distant towards her mom and clings to me. My wife attempted to play with her on this toy set, but our daughter wasn't having it and shouted at her mom that she didn't want to play with her. The disconnect between my daughter and wife hurts in a way I'm still processing. I knew my wife's work-life balance took its toll. Pre-Vegas, we were supposed to be working on reconnecting, but just how fractured things are is a lot more apparent. Our daughter interacts very little with her mom and becomes quiet around her like she does with strangers. I feel at her age we, as her parents, should be who she's closest with and not this disconnected from her mom. Their dynamic is something I've been reflecting on. My main focus is making sure my daughter's okay through all of this. As far as between my wife and me, she's advocating for us to reconcile. She's expressed she wants to work on our marriage not solely for our daughter but because she loves me. Her rally cries for our relationship are still falling flat for me. I can't give her what she wants right now. I told her I wished she would have given herself these rallies before cheating. She's adamant about the affair timeline and what occurred with the coworker, 23M. They connected because she felt bad he wasn't fitting in. He kept flirting and treating her like royalty. It started feeling good on the rougher workdays. They had an emotional affair even though she didn't label it as such at the time. The EA turned physical during the retreat. She dissociated from her life back home while away in Vegas. She still swears they had sex only once. The hickey came from foreplay, and while giving her oral, he called her my nickname for her, which shook her out of it. She snapped at him about his immature attitude with the hickey and then kicked him out of her suite. She thought she could quietly end things and salvage our marriage. I asked her if she wore her wedding ring during sex with him. She confessed that she did. Knowing this hurts like hell. To me, our wedding rings were a physical symbol of our love, commitment to our vows, and our bond. She tarnished our rings. I haven't been able to wear mine. It never hurts any less. There are just new levels to the hurt. She admits to contributing to blurred lines. She's now changed her number and claims to have cut contact with the coworker. She reported the affair to HR. The company has suspended both of them while they investigate the extent to which the affair impacted the department. Coworker relations violate their policy, and it doesn't look good for my wife in terms of power balance since she was the guy's mentor. They're also calling into question if she gave him favoritism. Some have suggested I reach out to the coworker. I've considered it, but I'm not in a place to. I feel a lot of anger towards him. He knew exactly what he was doing with the hickey and nickname stunt. I wouldn't get anything from him except trouble. He's not worth it. I'm choosing to focus on my daughter. I've chosen to pursue marriage counseling. This isn't under the promise of reconciling but as an assist in working through this separation as healthy as possible for our daughter. I'm still numb in a lot of ways. I never thought this would be how my marriage and family turned out. I've seen it happen to others. I've heard stories. I thought I knew what it was like. But it's nothing compared to dealing with it yourself. I don't feel like the same person anymore. I don't know how everything will pan out. It's an uphill battle, but I'm trying to show up to the battle. It's the best I can do right now. Thank you to everyone who has reached out. I appreciate the support, really. TLDR Update 4, my wife returned from a work retreat in Vegas with a hickey on her neck. She swears it's a bug bite, but I'm not convinced. I only feel more strongly when I consider how distant and weird she was during the retreat. We're stuck between arguing and her dousing our daughter and me with affection. I'm at a loss. I really need outside perspectives. How do I move forward? Comments. Commenter 1. The situation hasn't changed. Your wife lied to you, cheated on you, and made up a pathetic story to try and cover herself when things got too obvious. Her cheating was not a mistake but a series of choices, lies, and deceptions. The way you move forward is by seeing a divorce lawyer and proceeding down that path. There is no happiness left for you in this marriage. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Commenter 2. I still think she's trickle-trothing OP2. OP, you owe her nothing and how could you ever trust her again? For her work, are you sure he wasn't threatening to out the relationship so she did it first? Could you even verify that she did tell HR? If HR does know, she should be scared because she was a predator. Did she use the phrase disassociate? That's when you mentally remove from trauma, not from missing your daughter's birthday to fuck a coworker. Commenter 3. Not going to lie, super surprised she reported it to work, which gives me some hope. She is willing to torpedo her career, to be honest. However you feel how you feel, and you're handling this pretty well, making sure it's about creating a positive environment for your kid. Marriage and personal counseling are helpful for us to learn how to communicate and ask ourselves how we want to feel. Commenter 4. She claims she told work. For all we know, the dude reported it. Stories number 2. Tonight I broke up with my boyfriend because he kept joking about murdering me. During our first few weeks of dating, he joked too much for comfort that he was going to murder and dismember me and dispose of my body. Maybe out of context, I'm being dramatic. He's very sarcastic and has dark humor. But to me it wasn't funny and caused me anxiety because I know the statistics. I talked to him about this. I told him repeatedly, stop joking about killing me. He kept on with the jokes, until I finally told him that those jokes literally scare me. He apologized and seemed to feel bad that his jokes made me scared of him. Tonight we were over 3 hours late to meet with his brother to play games, watch movies and eat dinner. When I was talking to him about us being late, I noticed he sighed deeply, clenched his fist and looked down at it, as if he were making the conscious choice to not punch me. Then, as I was saying goodbye to his brother, he comes into the room and says she should say her permanent goodbyes. I asked him WTF. He said it was a joke. I asked, how's it funny? What's the punchline? Please explain to me how that was supposed to be funny. He couldn't answer. I didn't want to get in the car with him. I walked off and thankfully my roommate picked me up and drove me home. He called later, and I told him I'm done. He's a good man other than for the jokes about killing me. We talked about and agreed that he wouldn't joke about killing me anymore, but then he did it again tonight, and doubled down that it was just a joke and that actually I'm the problem. I started telling him, again, about how often women are killed by their husbands and boyfriends and that's why the jokes bother me so much, but he interrupted me to say fuck you. So I hung up and blocked him. All of this really ducks because my roommates say I should just talk it out with him and give him another chance because they can tell I really like him and he really likes me. But I already did that. I thought we were past the homicide jokes. Then he did it again tonight while he was angry with me, and it caused me this awful feeling in my gut that I needed to not get in the car with him, and get away from him. I've had boyfriends and male friends in the past. None of them have ever made jokes about murdering and dismembering me, especially multiple times after I told them to stop. Have you had friends' boyfriends that make jokes like this? Where is the humor in it? What would you do in this situation? Update: thank you everyone for your overwhelming support. Also thank you for the important links and resources in the comments. I've learned a lot and shared them with my friends. I love this sub. I haven't heard from him and he hasn't caused any trouble since the breakup. If anything comes up I'll update this post. Top comments. Commenter 1, you've already given him chances. He agreed to change, then he broke his word. So not only is he verbally abusive and potentially violent, he also breaks his word. You did nothing wrong. There is no humor in what he said, and abusers frequently excuse their abuse in the two ways he did. First, they say it was a joke. If you don't accept that, they try to blame it on you. You don't want to become a statistic. Well, there are plenty of men out there who will never threaten to kill you. You have done exactly the right thing. Don't feel bad about anything you've done. My one piece of old woman advice to you is to be very strict around dating men when it comes to threats. Joke or not, if a man threatens you in any way, tell him that if he does it again, it's over. Don't tolerate any kind of threats or violence, ever. If the man is actually a danger, he will see tolerance as a sign that he can violate your boundaries without consequences. Commenter 2, why does he do that? By Lundy Bancroft PDF. Commenter 3, just remember, there's a lot of murdered women that once said, he'd never do that to me. Commenter 3, when I was a teenager I would go driving around country roads and around our smallish town with male buddies from school. I'm a woman, and one night my really good friend thought it was a good idea to make a joke about chopping me up with an axe. I got really terrified because it was just an overwhelming and scary thing to hear and I started to cry. The immediate regret was obvious in my friend's eyes and he genuinely looked mortified for having scared me so bad. He started apologizing and saying it was such a stupid joke and reassured me. In the moments after making his stupid attempt at humor and seeing the impact it had, he felt remorse and wanted to correct his behavior. Your ex did not do this, or if he did, he immediately repeated the scary behavior again anyways. My friend never made a joke like that again. Men who actually care about us will respond empathetically to our fear response and will want to do whatever it takes to ensure we feel safe around them. Especially if it's as simple as refraining from making dumb jokes. I hope you never have to see this creep again and good for you for sticking up for yourself. Update post. I hope I'm not breaking any subreddit rules by posting an update, but I thought this sub would like this update from all the feedback my OP received and all the messages I read requesting an update. Thankfully I have moved across state since then and have not seen him since. The last time I spoke to him, over the phone, I made it very clear several times. Me, you promised you'd stop making jokes about murdering me, but then you did it again. Me, you realize the greatest threat for women is being murdered by their boyfriends' husbands? They are most likely to be killed by men they know. Him, hey Chugnose. Fuck you. So I hung up. I ghosted him after that. Blocked him on everything and alerted my employer if he showed up that he was a threat. However, he sent me an email in an attempt to. I don't know. I'll leave you to draw conclusions because I really can't make sense of it. I'm sorry if I quoted it incorrectly, I'm on mobile. The email he sent me, dear, my name, spelled with, he got my name wrong multiple times and it became a joke, which is what he refers to here. I don't really know how to go about saying that I am empathetic, as I'm a me-pathetic mess, but I do feel, I can understand, and I have recognized. My actions have consequences. Clearly, I thought I was being reasonable. I gave you time and space, I wasn't sure how long I needed to wait, or if I should just do nothing, but I didn't know you had even blocked me, until today, as I had not called, and only texted that first day, expecting nothing back, yet now I understand, I should have known. I tried to call you tonight though, despite my better judgment, that's when it hit me hard. It's been almost 2 weeks, I know you don't want to be in a relationship with me, but I wanted to end this civilly, I could hope at least. On terms that we both could live on, amicably, or me, since I didn't have a choice. That terrible night was booze-ridden and unfortunately for me, the end of us. I didn't get any chance, but I made my choices, and I was cut out of you, like the cancer I became, regardless of how much I remember, due to my memories being cut down by Irish whiskey and hazed focused. You ghosted me. Now I know how that feels, as I have done that to others. I deserve this. It's interesting because you mentioned to me that I never had to change my number in my last relationship over 5 years ago, because all I needed to do was block them. Damn, history not only repeats itself, but can be fucking ironic. I lost one of my best friends. I lost you. I have been hurting, OP. This hurt even more when I realized you don't even want to communicate with me. I would ask why. But I know it's because you hate me, what you think of me. What you think I am. Who likes Andrew Tate? Nobody. I embody that nobody. I am hate. I am Tate. I obviously have a lot of growing up to do, I was not aware of just how much. I do not regret you, or the experiences I shared, which were awesome and different than all the treasures I had experienced with another soul. We had so much in common, and yet, the few things we didn't shaped itself into a shadow that blocked our light, your light. I regret not realizing that perhaps, I was just not ready. You are so beautiful and awesome, OP, and I hate hurting you in any way, especially since you deserve so much love, and instead I gave you fear. You however only gave me happiness, you made me feel wanted, so much so that it blindsided me. I haven't been that happy in a very long time, and maybe that's why I fell for you so hard and so fast, as I had been in the dark for years, and your essence got me as high as a kite. I could see the sky for once, I was flying. I had been grounded since I had lost my wings a few years ago, and it showed. I started sinking in the sands of time. In bottles. In gates drowned by my fears. My brother lost a friend because of me. I lost because of me. I may be a good person that does bad things, but I did a bad thing to a good person. It scares me to think that, when we do, and it will inevitably happen, as it's a small town, run into each other, you will fear me. And I will fear you. I don't want that. But I made my grave, and I suppose I need to sleep in it. I will not call you again, as I did tonight, as much as I want to. You can always call me, but I am aware that is about as real as my dreams coming true. I have respected your space. I haven't tried to suffocate it, or breath your air. I just wanted to bury myself with a little dignity today, considering that I must be public enemy number one. I'm embarrassed to admit that running into your roommates or even coworkers makes me feel uncomfortable. That I did. To myself. And you. I'm sorry, OP. I don't know what else to say. I know you will find someone, sooner or later, who will treat you with respect, and make you feel loved. I am not him. I failed, but you will have that, as much as I don't want to think of it. And you deserve it, as much as I didn't commit to that. I know you think I don't love you. You can ghost me, you cannot respond, I don't think you will anyways, maybe you won't even read this, which is okay, I needed to say my piece, to rest at sea. But you can't take away how I felt. Or how I feel at all. Maybe that was the problem, I was too much. You thought I was just a blimp in time anyhow, and now. That blimp can finally sink in time. Edit, thank you for all the support. I love this sub, no way he will ever hear from or see me again. Now I live in a new town, new home, and with a great man that respects and appreciates me. Sum of comments. Commenter 1, people talking about this man being sociopath, psychopath, narcissistic. To me he sounds like a generic boy that is trying to verbalize his emotions for the first time. I don't know how old he is, but it reads like the letters my first boyfriend at 20 years old sounded. Trying to be poetic and funny and failing at both. And just word vomiting emotions without fully understanding them. Yeah, that's just a normal dude learning his actions have consequences for the first time. Reply, he's like 40. Commenter 2, I'm so glad you're safe. I have wondered about you from time to time. Reply, thank you. I'm doing great. Commenter 3, this reminds me of how an ex responded to me many years ago when I broke up with him. I broke up with him because I started getting this weird gut feeling that I didn't feel comfortable being alone with him, and he was getting very possessive and a bit manipulative. I even had a close family friend reach out to me to hesitantly share that she was not sure why, but she was worried about me being alone with him. He responded, via texts, by trying every manipulation tactic in the book, from telling me he was sobbing and to please take him back, to saying I had just been using him and was a liar, to telling me he didn't know how he was going to go on with his life. His reaction made me realize I absolutely made the right choice. Reply, thank you for sharing. It's so important to trust our instincts. Commenter 4, him talking about alcohol makes it make sense. All the more reason to keep him blocked though. If he's making those jokes while drunk, there's a non-zero chance that he actually did fantasize about killing and dismembering you or someone else. Reply, most of the time when he made the jokes he was totally sober. Commenter 5, I read through your first post. The dating phase is when you get to know somebody. Take your time to do that before more commitment. He is a nutcase. I doubt he ghosted anybody and he is trying to say things that make himself look better. Reply, we weren't together for long. I was initially attracted to him because he was cheerful, happy, charismatic, kind, considerate, and handsome. Then the mask fell off. Commenter 6, shadow that blocked our light, your light. Am I the only one who read it as another death threat? Blocking the light with capital letters implying she will be turned off. OP, please do not lower your guards and be careful. Reply, wow, you have a great point. I had not considered that until now. Stories number 3. Aita for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did. So, my 28M sister, 30F, is getting married in a few months. We've always been close, or so I thought. I was really excited for her and assumed I'd be part of the wedding party, but when she sent out the invitations, I noticed something weird. My name wasn't listed as a groomsman or even part of the wedding party at all. I asked her about it, thinking maybe it was a mistake, and she awkwardly told me she and her fiancé had decided to only have people who really fit the aesthetic in the wedding. Apparently, that meant my younger brother, 25M, was in, but I wasn't. When I pushed for an explanation, she eventually admitted it was because I have a visible birthmark on my face, and she didn't want it to stand out in the photos. I was stunned. I told her that was incredibly shallow and hurtful, but she doubled down, saying it was her special day, and that she had the right to curate the look of it however she wanted. Our parents are trying to keep the peace, saying she's just being a bit bridezilla and that I should still attend to support her. But honestly, I feel so disrespected that I don't even want to go anymore. Now my family is calling me petty and saying I'm making a big deal out of nothing. My sister even said, it's not like I don't love you, I just don't want you in my wedding pictures. Which doesn't really make me feel better. So, Aita for refusing to go. Stories number 4. My husband said women in media make a fuss about SA and that, I know you wouldn't ever do that. I'm using a throwaway because my husband and I share the same main. Husband, 34M, and I, 24F, have been married for 2 years. Yesterday, I was watching the news about a woman in my country who recently passed away. She was sexually assaulted before being murdered. The lady's family was grieving and being interviewed. In the news, they were crying and saying they wanted justice so that their daughter could rest in peace, as the perpetrators haven't been caught yet. My husband was beside me as we watched the news. Out of nowhere, he turned to me and said, all these women make a fuss about SA and RPE. I know you wouldn't ever do that. It's hard to write it down here, but I haven't been more shocked in my life. I immediately went into defense mode over what he just said and asked him WTF. He said it's not a big deal if something sad happens to someone because everyone goes through rough stuff. If everyone were to make fuss about every violent thing that happens, then at some point, it's nothing original. He brought up the lady's family in the news, saying they were looking for attention. If they wanted justice, they go to the court and not to the media. It's always the woman speaking up and I wouldn't ever find a man making the same fuss. I'm a little paraphrasing but I hope you understand. I honestly couldn't even bring myself to say anything because everything that man was spewing was absurd. I argued with him for the next 2 hours. I asked him if I ever go through the same thing, would he not speak up for me, media or not, and his response basically was, but that wouldn't happen, and even if it hypothetically did, I won't be all dramatic about it since you would be resting in peace and that's more than enough, WTF. I still cannot process the fact that I married this man. Granted it's arranged and I had no choice at one point, but I had genuinely liked him over the course of our marriage. He's never done or said anything problematic but this is killing me. I impulsively brought up divorce, but he finds it absurd, so do I because it's such a foreign word to me and it's seen as a taboo at my place. He said I'm overly sensitive because I'm a woman who is relating to that poor woman, and that this is just his opinion, which I'm unable to accept, so let's agree to disagree then cause a break in our relationship. Whipta if I divorce him over this? I need some advice, if possible. I don't have a proper support system. I mentioned it to my friend today, we're not really close but we work together. She said men say mindless things sometimes, so maybe he didn't mean it. But I don't think this is a thing to say mindlessly at all. Stories number 5. Aita for telling my fiancé that his family was too nice when I met them. I, 27F, recently met my fiancé's, 31M, family for the first time. We have been together for 4 years, but we spent 2 of those years in my home country, and then moved to his country after I finished my graduate program. We didn't settle in his home state, but I kept asking to meet his parents because he's met mine multiple times, and he always said that they're just very private people or kind of old-fashioned, so we should wait until we're engaged. Weird, but some people are just weird, so I didn't push on it. Well, we're engaged now. So last weekend we finally made the trip. And I don't know how else to describe it, but something felt really off about the entire thing. They weren't rude. I want to preface by saying that. It's on the contrary. They were nice to a degree that felt contrived and honestly a little scary. His mom kept hugging and touching me and holding my hands, asking what she can do for me, how she can make me comfortable, that it's so nice to finally meet me. His dad barely said a word to me, and that juxtaposition was a lot. But I felt love bombed a little. She made all my favorite foods and kept anxiously asking if anything was wrong, if she could refill my drink. She even offered me her shirt when I mentioned I thought it looked really nice. I thought maybe she was just anxious. Ick. His little sisters asked polite questions to me, but still, it felt so surface level. His mom was dominating everything. It kind of felt like a job interview. Like, what are you looking for in a marriage, and have you heard much about our little town, with palpable relief when I said no, because I'm not from the US. She asked about my past relationships and was very interested in why me and my past boyfriend broke up. I specifically remember her asking, how hard did you fight for it? Or did you just leave? And that was so weird. I just felt oddly interrogated and coddled at the same time. I'm not explaining myself well, but my gut told me to get out of that house. My fiancé barely spoke all night, and any time I looked to him for reassurance he just smiled and looked down at his hands. Which is not like him. At all. A couple nights in and I told him I was feeling kind of weird and wanted to go home. He asked me why, and I told him that maybe I'm just not used to American socializing, that I just feel a little tired and overwhelmed, and that his family is really, really nice and I'm not sure how to handle it. I was trying to not be rude, but we've always emphasized honesty in our relationship, and I thought if this was a cultural thing maybe we could talk about it and overcome it together. He got really defensive though, saying I was being dramatic, rude, and xenophobic, when his family had gone out of their way to make me feel welcome. I apologized and said I was grateful, that I just felt a little weird, and he said he was done talking about it. We drove home and he won't talk about it anymore, will hardly even talk to me. His mom, on the other hand, has been texting me non-stop since she met me. How happy she was to meet me, how beautiful I am, and how she hopes we won't wait too long to get married and have kids. I just feel so unsettled. My fiancé thinks I am an ungrateful asshole, and maybe I am. Am I? I just feel so out of sorts over this. Any advice, criticism, anything is welcome. Edit. My fiancé still isn't talking to me. At all. He shut himself in our room and said he needed space. Seriously, am I missing something here? WTF do I do? I feel like I'm going crazy. Ada has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. Americans will talk and smile to strangers all the time just being friendly, but this is not normal American socializing. I'm from the South US where we take the friendly up a notch, and I'm on my couch cringing so bad I almost stopped reading, I was so uncomfortable. Reply. I didn't want to make any generalizations in my post, but I seriously thought I was just being inconsiderate and not adapting to a different culture cause he kept insisting that was my problem. But it's weird, right? It felt like so much more than friendly. I can't accurately depict it with words. Thank you for sharing this as an American because I feel a lot less crazy now. Commenter 2, sounds like you're experiencing at least a little culture shock, which is totally normal. It can take a while to get used to the practices of a new place. On top of that, they may be trying so hard to look good in front of you that they are overcompensating a bit, making it feel awkward. It will get better with time. Just be patient and try not to get too aggravated. NTA. Reply. I think it might be the second option more than a culture thing. Maybe they were just nervous, specifically his mom. But the texting hasn't really stopped and it's freaking me out. I just met them and it's gone from 0 to 100. Is OOP her fiancé's first relationship? Or has he dated prior to OOP? Reply. I am his first serious relationship. He's mentioned past flings, but we haven't talked much about exes. So maybe his mom is just really excited that he's finally settling down or something. Commenter 3, Makes me wonder if he threatened them and they're reacting this way as a passive-aggressive reaction to his pressure. Reply, I don't know. I asked to meet them for a long time and he had so many reasons for why we couldn't, so I guess part of the discord in my mind is why they reacted this way when he told me they were private and old-fashioned. It just doesn't match up at all. I also don't think my fiancé would do something like that, but he is acting so strange right now. Update 1. I finally got my fiancé to talk to me and it was not a good conversation. I apologized again for coming across as ungrateful, and he said that the way I reacted to his family told him everything he needed to know about why he was so reluctant to let me meet them in the first place. He said I should be grateful they welcomed me with such open arms and that I needed to remember that the only reason I'm doing so well in this country is because I am dependent on him to be here. That had me so angry I literally can't stand being talked down to. I said I felt like this was way out of proportion, and he then accused me of cheating on him. He demanded to see my phone because apparently, according to him, I am intentionally trying to sabotage our relationship by saying his family is too nice so that he'll call off the engagement, I can call him the asshole, and I get to go off with my so-called fling. I am not a cheater, so I said go ahead, look through my phone. He scrolled through my texts for a bit, my internet search history, my social media search history, and my camera roll. As expected, he found nothing, but he doubled down and said that this was a serious problem for him and that he needs to reevaluate our entire relationship. I am so baffled. He has never blown up on me like this. I feel like I don't even recognize who I am getting married to. WTF do I do? Am I actually this much of an asshole? Edit for clarity, I didn't articulate myself well in the first post, so here is a more extensive rundown of what happened at his home. His mom touched my hair and kept hugging me, grabbing my arm, she even pinched my cheeks a couple of times. These could all be very normal things, I am coming to understand this by reading the comments. But this paired with everything else just made me feel like more of a doll. She said I was more beautiful than I imagined, multiple times kept saying I was beautiful and perfect for her son. She grabbed my shirt because she said it looked so good on me and wanted to feel it. She insisted I sit down next to her and every so often kept saying she was so glad to finally meet me and that it feels like she had been waiting for me forever. She served my plate for me and kept filling it with food even when I said thank you, it was so yummy, but I'm full. She kept bringing me drinks even when I said I wasn't thirsty. I don't handle alcohol well, so I try not to drink. I would try to decline but she just kept insisting so then I felt like I couldn't. She was asking me what I was looking for in a relationship, what kind of wife I wanted to be, what my past relationships were like, why I left my exes, what my thought process and reasoning was. And since we left, she has been texting me almost this whole time, asking me to promise I'll come back ADN visit, asking when the wedding is, asking me to not put it off for long. Asking when we're going to have kids. Asking if we're trying for kids. I hope this provides more clarity for why I felt the way that I did, even if I shouldn't have said it to my fiancé because I was a guest in their home and a receiver of their hospitality. Edit 2, many people have asked and I guess it might be more relevant than I thought. Fiancé is white and I am Asian. No, I was not born in the US. We met when he was teaching English in my home country. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, to me, saying that you are depending on him to stay in this country is very clearly a threat. And accusing you of cheating is unforgivable. You know what you need to do, this relationship is not it. If you do want to stay in this country, I would start looking into visas, but if he's the only reason that you are here, I will look to start transitioning back to your home. I think that you could have worded what you said differently, but I don't think you're the asshole for it, and he was not based on his original reaction except for the silent treatment. But now he is not only a giant asshole, but very cool showing abusive tendencies. Don't make yourself depending on him ever, and if you do want children in the future, do you really want him to be the father? Give him the words that he said to you, and the way his family made you feel. Reply, that bit about depending on him really hurt me. I have a graduate degree in biomedical science and would do just fine here or at home. I know he only said that with the intention to hurt me. There's no other reason, especially because when we lived where I'm from, he was teaching English and made very little money, and I housed him without asking for a dime or ever making him feel less than. Commenter 2, something is weird and the whole situation is off. I don't blame you for being uncomfortable. Touching a hand or an arm okay, stroking your hair when you have just met is creepy and over the top. Also it feels like he is hiding something that he doesn't want you to know and is afraid will get out. Part of the reason you hadn't met the parents in all that time. For whatever reason he is pushing you away on purpose. Now doubling down with the cheating accusations. He is hiding something. NTA, unless he is willing to open up, I don't think there is much of a chance for you. Reply, I honestly didn't think about this, but my friends back home are saying the same thing. I don't even know where to begin with that. I don't want to speculate over him the way he's done with me. Like, I don't want to accuse him. I'm just so hurt and struggling to catch up. I can't emphasize enough that I feel like this came out of nowhere, but maybe I should have been paying more attention. I was busy for a lot of our relationship in school. Commenter 3, people can tell you this kind of touchy-feeliness is normal, but that's why this whole subreddit is kind of nuts. So much of the question being asked, being data, is entirely subjective. Being touchy-feely is fine for some and is warm and benevolent for many, but these people should have the wherewithal, especially if they're maturely aged adults, to understand that they need to have boundaries with new people. So anyone telling you that you're a jerk for feeling uncomfortable are completely incapable of seeing another person's viewpoint and lacking the understanding that people are different and people can have preferences. Something is up with everyone, like does this mother not get out much? If she's so private, why is she so overbearing with crossing boundaries? It makes more sense that she's like forced from going out in public and is desperate for interaction, or that she's kept inside because she has a mental illness. Whatever it is, something doesn't add up. Like, don't touch my shirt or stroke my hair. Don't asking I just gave up and left on past relationships. What are you implying, even if you're not aware of it? What kind of wife do I want to be? How about if you wanted to grill me, you meet me earlier on in the relationship? Clearly this was her son's decision to keep you separate. While some people tell you you're being rude and ungrateful, I'd also remind them that in some parts of the world it's considered barbaric to grab for another person's face. You said you liked her shirt and she offered it to you off her back. This is weird behavior. Reply, the problem is, I don't know. He never spoke much about his family. I don't know what situation his mother is in. I just know that I was so uncomfortable. And that was part of my problem with the whole thing. I understood going into it that there would probably be some grilling. But I don't feel like the questions being asked were what I expected at all. Like I really did not want to delve into my past relationships in front of his entire family. I don't know if she was looking for red flags or something else, I just felt so vulnerable and exposed. Like being in a fish tank and everyone was watching me struggle to stay afloat. I guess I'm at peace with the fact that my feelings of discomfort are valid. I just don't know if I should have said it to him, as it was his family and I was a guest there. I usually feel sure of myself, but I feel like all of that is crumbling right now and I'm not entirely sure why. I think I'm just overwhelmed. Final update. I want to start this out by saying thank you so much to all of the commenters and people who messaged me private words of support and comfort. I have been really slow to catch up to what is happening to me, and though a lot of the comments scared me, I started coming to the natural conclusion that they were right. I felt more and more unsettled as the hours went on. Fiancé's mother kept texting me, and he didn't text me from work like he usually does. He got back late. His job is labor-intensive and requires long hours. When he got back I was waiting and told him I wanted to talk, right now, because the way events are unfolding is unacceptable to me, the effort I've put into our relationship, and is leaving too many questions unanswered and creating even more. He instantly lit up and demanded to see my phone again. I said I would not give him my phone unless he gave me his, and he vehemently denied, saying I was the one causing problems, so it was his right to look through my phone, not his. At this point, I was starting to feel really scared of him. I am physically much smaller than him and this has never felt more apparent to me than in that moment. He was speaking really loudly and really closely to me, telling me that his family and him were willing to give me a second chance if I behaved better this time, that he knew I had it in me to be polite because I always acted that way back in my home country, and that no one else in America would put up with this bullshit, so I should consider myself lucky he didn't do more to expose my cheating. I asked if he was threatening me, and he again demanded to see my phone. I said no, though not as firmly as the first time, and he stormed off to the bathroom and turned the shower on. I was really scared. So many of you told me to look him and his family up and I didn't because I honestly thought it was silly. But I did right there in our living room. Turns out, he did have a past girlfriend, though he's always maintained he has only had short flings and never a serious relationship. She disappeared 8 years ago and he was considered a suspect for a while. I couldn't find much in the articles because I honestly didn't know how to dig further. I don't know if anything ever happened with it, if he still is a suspect, though I guess he couldn't be to teach English in another country. I don't know how it works. I know he was never convicted, but whether or not he did it is irrelevant to the fact that he lied. He lied so colossally about something so huge. I was genuinely so scared that I started shaking. I couldn't think or do anything. It was the middle of the night and he was in the shower and I was just so scared. I really missed my mom and home so much more than I have since I left. I locked myself in our bedroom and called her and she answered, despite it being the middle of the night, and tried to explain what was happening as best I could. My parents told me to leave all of my things except for family photos, heirlooms, and my work things and go to a hotel. Not to say a word to him and just do it as quickly as possible. I told them he was in the shower so they thought I would have enough time to do it without him noticing. I got all my stuff together as quickly as I could. I think I forgot some jewelry but it's okay. My dad sent me money for a hotel and that's where I am right now. I took an Uber about 2 hours away from the city on a separate account I made that night, as I don't have a car here. My fiancé started messaging me about 30 minutes into the drive asking what was going on. I sent him the links to the articles I read and said I was feeling really scared and lied to and that I thought our relationship was over. If he thought I was cheating, clearly we don't trust each other. He called me so many times, kept sending that I was a bitch for accusing him of something he didn't do, for bringing up such a sore subject when he wasn't ready to talk about it. He said he wished he never met me and that I should think long and hard about what I'm doing because I don't fully understand the consequences of being alone in America, that no one will want me like him, that he was doing me a favor. I just ignored it. I was crying so hard the Uber driver actually asked me if I was okay. Then, his mom started calling and texting me. She said she knows it sounds scary but her son is a good person and he had nothing to do with it, and that if we just get married and have kids things will really smooth out. I couldn't take it anymore. I just wanted to go home. Everything was clicking into place way too much. His parents' treatment of me, why he kept demanding to see my phone, why it took so long for me to go to his hometown and meet his family. My friend walked me through everything and it all made sense. My body was so overcome by the stress and fear that I couldn't stand to be there for one more second. I am at the hotel now. All location services on my phone are disabled and my dad bought me a plane ticket home. I emailed my job and told them a family emergency came up and I would no longer be able to offer my services to them. Most of my clothes are still at the home I shared with my fiancé and I don't think I'll ever get them back because I don't want to go back, and it's not like I can ask my friends to get it for me. I have some friends here but they're not close, and it's too hard to ship them. Anyway, that's it. I sent him a text saying that the engagement is called off. There's a lot of other things to address, like the fact that we have shared accounts, he has my visa information, etc. I don't want to speculate over what happened with him and his past girlfriend because I don't know. They never found her, and my heart breaks for her. He just lied about it. For years. And tried to do everything he could to keep it from me. I am too scared to ever be comfortable in that relationship again, and I think it's time for me to go home. Thank you so much again to everyone who sent me comforting words of support and kindness. I don't know if I would have come to the same conclusions if not for your comments. Hopefully next time we meet I'll be back home with my family and friends. Top comments. Commenter 1, well I'm glad you're safe. Just a thought regarding your money. There are online virtual bank accounts you can open to transfer out your portion of the money from the shared bank accounts. Or depending on the account you can also wire transfer it to an account in your home county. Can you report your visa documents lost or stolen but have them mail it to a friend's address then have them mail it your home country? Do you have at least one friend you trust to confide in? I know you said you're not super close but you may need to call in a favor because this is a big deal. Either way, at minimum call the immigration office to find out what your options are for getting the documents replaced. Maybe something can be done without involving a friend. The clothes can be replaced, your life cannot be. Good luck with everything but a part of me does hope this is fake because it's crazy to think someone is dealing with this IRL, though yes I know crazy things happen every day. Commenter 2, two possibilities. He or his family are responsible for whatever happened to this missing girl 8 years ago or she panicked as you are now in GTFO. Either way, do not underestimate the amount of danger you are in right now. Get home ASAP. Commenter 3, the ex-fiancé was behaving very poorly, for sure. He seems paranoid and volatile. Hopefully he has learned that he shouldn't conceal his past, but it is very troubling that he didn't disclose before introducing you to his family and that his behavior turned so ugly abusive so quickly. These facts raise the likelihood that he murdered the missing girl much higher. His family's over-the-top niceness was weird, but definitely understandable in context. NTA. Stay safe. Stories number 6. Aita for telling my husband he works for himself, not for our family. My husband and I have known each other for 6 years and been married for almost 3 years now. We have a 1-year-old, and we're expecting another baby. Our marriage has been full of emotional highs, we love each other and let the other know regularly. My husband has a 9-to-5 job after which he is also a tutor. He had started this back when we were in college, and it was never an issue, he always had enough time. Even in the years leading up to the marriage and the first year of our marriage, this was never a big issue. However, in the last year or so it's become a big issue, and it's getting worse. He keeps on adding more classes to his schedule. Until last month we had a red line that no classes on Sunday, he would devote that entire time to us. But last month he even added a class on Sunday on the excuse that exams are starting. It started to feel like me and my son weren't a priority to him anymore. Some days he comes home at 11. On other days he's doing it online, but that's not much better because he still can't give us any time. Last Sunday, I finally spoke out and told him he was neglecting his family. He was offended and told me that he doesn't enjoy having to work so hard, but he's doing it for our family. This is where I told him that no, I think he does enjoy it, it gives him an excuse to not spend time with us, and that he was doing this for himself, not for us. As things currently stand, our collective income is more than enough. There really was no need for him to add more classes on top of his existing ones, he's doing it for himself at this point. He's literally busy Monday through Saturday, and now he's trying to cross the red line we established for Sunday. We've been on bad terms since this fight. He keeps saying he can't believe that I said he works for himself, not for us. Aita here. Relevant comments. Comment 1. It's going to be hard and you're going to have to grit your teeth through it, but if he is working all the time to support his family. Love the man and cherish the little time you get with him. He's grinding to support y'all. Would you rather you spend all the time in the world together and living in squalor or on the streets? Please support him while he supports his family. Hell, have you told him you're proud of him working so hard? Reply, I have a 9-5 job too, and like I said, our collective income covers our expenses and then some. If that weren't the case, of course I wouldn't be angry, I would understand. But given the situation, the fact that he took away the one day we get together just because it's exam season really got to me. I also want to make clear I absolutely appreciate how he provides for us to give us a great standard of living. And I've told him this many times. But now it feels like he's adding more work to disengage. Comment 2, info, did he grow up lower income? His father may have worked himself to the bone to keep them above water. So it may be all he knows. Reply, no, both his parents are doctors. That was certainly not the case. Comment 3, info, I see where you're coming from, but I gotta ask, you sound like you feel secure about your financial situation. But does he? You're expecting another kid. You have a 1-year-old with another on the way. I don't know where you're based, but certain regions are more expensive than others for families to live in. Based on just that information alone, there could be plenty of thought put behind whether or not you guys have the financial stability for the future. You clearly think so, but does your husband? Have you ever had that conversation with him, fruitfully, honestly, about the objective truth of your financial stability and his and your thoughts on it? Reply, yes, we had that discussion before. We talked about how since we're already comfortable, there shouldn't be any need to have a class on Sunday. In fact, at the time, I also thought he should cut down on his existing classes but relented on the Sunday agreement. I didn't think the numbers were important, but a lot of comments, not you, seemed to doubt my judgment that we're stable. I'm an accountant who makes $70,000 a year. My husband is a software engineer who makes around over $100,000. And based on how many students he teaches and how many classes he has, he makes over $100,000 from that. Our household income covers our expenses. I'm an accountant, this is kind of my bread and butter. Update 1. Thank you for the feedback in the last post. The comment said that me asking him to adhere to the boundaries we established was reasonable. Some comments also suggested that I should not have implied that he works just to get away, so I was a little apologetic as well. After he came back, I decided to talk to him about this. The conversation was a bit of a train wreck. I brought up the fact that our income far exceeds our current and projected expenses. That me and our son were missing him, and needed him to spend more time with us, and I made sure to stress that I appreciated all that he did. It just seemed like we were on completely different wavelengths. He said he kept on taking more lessons and students because he wanted us to have a good standard of living, have better vacations, better schools, a second house. I was dumbfounded. I never knew he felt that way. I stressed our current standard of living was great, we make enough money, and that if he thinks that way there's no end in sight. What if he decided we should also have a third house or something? Right now I needed him with me. At this point, I kind of lost control and started crying. I didn't mean to, it wasn't something I wanted to do to pressure him or anything, just the fact that we were at an impasse was wrecking me. I told him I'd been feeling unhappy, that I kept compromising, and he reneged on it. After some more crying and consoling, my husband agreed that Sunday should have remained off limits. He gently asked me to give him a pass for one more Sunday, because his students' exams end next week, and he would make Sunday untouchable the following semester onwards. He also promised to try to resize his classes in order to be able to come back home for dinner even if it's late dinner. He asked for time to do all this. I've given it to him and I know he loves us enough to do what he promised. Thanks for the feedback to the original post. Relevant comments. Comment 1. You need to tell him that he needs to get right with his family and you right now. Or he might be living in that third house alone. Play him, Cats in the Cradle, as background music. Reply. I would like the changes to happen immediately but I want those changes to be permanent. If he does something at a snap right now but has to go back, that would suck. So I'm just giving him the time to make those sustainable changes. I'm getting our Sunday back after the next one, which is progress. At least we're back to the red line. He said he'd already booked a lot of classes for the next semester, so he just asked for time to discuss and rearrange them since he can't just say no to his students after agreeing. He was earnest. I believe I made it known to him the toll it's been taking on me, and he will make the necessary changes. Comment 2. You did a good job and took an important first step. I think it would be unrealistic for him to do a complete 180 after this conversation, and this is a necessary stepping stone. I'm usually very negative about relationships, but it disheartened me to see all the top comments being so negative when you took the time to update us and you didn't need to. I hope things continue to improve for you. Reply. Thank you. I had thought I did good, and then found out a lot of people here disagreed, so I started doubting how I did. I appreciate what everyone is saying, but he's a loving husband, friend, and father. It's just this one issue that's just gotten out of hand. I can't think of packing my bags. I believe he was neglecting us, but during the conversation realized he didn't know the extent to which it was affecting us. The class's issue has been getting bigger and bigger over time, so I realize fixing it will require some time. I'm just going to make sure I see him do it. Comment 3. Have you guys considered hiring a maid nanny to help with household duties? If you're making enough money, it could be worth the investment to reduce your burden. Reply. Yeah, that came up in the conversation and I'm looking into it. My job is WFH 2 days of the week, so that helps, and my mom lives close by, which is super helpful too. Most days I manage the household and child rearing without any issues. Like, it's not like I plan to give him a list of errands to run on the days he's in the house, but him just being physically present is something I'm missing now, and he's promised to remedy it as well he can. Comment 4. The biggest problem I see is that his self-worth is being validated by his students and classes, more than by his own family. He likes how teaching makes him feel, and he doesn't get the same validation from being just a husband and father. So, he will continue to prefer working as much as he can. And it's a double whammy because he justifies the extra work is for his family, so he feels doubly validated for doing good things. Reply. Your comment stayed with me for some reason, and I kept coming back to it. I asked him yesterday if he enjoyed teaching physics and math for hours on end, that he works so long, how does he not start hating it? I didn't bring up the topic of reduced hours or Sunday because we already have an agreement on that for now. He said he does like it. After some more inconspicuous needling, he told me he enjoys the fact that so many people trust that he can make them understand stuff and better their grades future. I didn't go further into it. But your comment really helped give me some insight. Thank you so much. Final update. Around a year ago I had been having issues with my husband regarding his tutoring schedule and had come here to know if I was in the wrong. A few people had asked me to let them know if things improve or continue to deteriorate. We're in a better place now. We've been blessed with a daughter now too. He has become better at handling his workload and tutors primarily online now. I know I had said at the time that that's not much better, but it really is. Sundays have become sacrosanct again, with very rare exceptions that he asks my approval for in advance, and Wednesdays are free now too. He does more group tutoring now and so gets done by 8:30 most days too. He also got a new day job which is entirely WFH, which has made things much better because he isn't so burnt out anymore. In the weeks following up to my daughter's arrival, he'd been by my side, especially since she arrived during the summer when school is out, that I also took some advice from here and hired help to ease the burden, which has worked out really well. I've also learned to embrace the fact that his tutoring gives him joy, which maybe his software development job doesn't. He seems to be proud when his students get into good universities, and that it results in even more students. He still claims to do it for purely financial reasons, but I know that can't be completely true, because our financial needs really do not require it. So it must be something he enjoys. So I've become more understanding on that front too. I have had to put my foot down a few times though, especially in the initial days following our conversation, to make sure he understands that I was serious about needing his presence more. I had also confided in his older sister about this issue, which he was not happy about at the time and was probably an accidental move on my end, but it helped. They had an argument. She straight up told him he was either going to end up working his way into an early grave at the age of 30 or ending up divorced, which helped. Full disclosure, the only time we ever really argue is still about this when I'll want him to be free but he won't be. But it's rare and overall we've come up with a good balance that seems to be working for us. Thank you. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I think my questions are, is he missing things? What do you need support with? What's the actual crux of the issue? I read your posts and it speaks to a lot of how you feel and apologies if I missed it in the comments, but is he actually not pulling his weight at home? Is he missing important events? I agree it's important to spend time together as a family unit, but usually when working on improving relationships feedback needs to be specific and actionable. Reply. We don't get to have our evening tea where we used to decompress, except on Wednesdays and Sundays. I know that doesn't sound like much, but I really enjoy that, and it's unfortunate he's not missing that. Sometimes he'll miss dinner, but he really tries to avoid it, I know. As far as important events go, all of our friends and family now know that Saturdays don't work for us, so they avoid it if possible. But the other day a family friend had a gender reveal party on Saturday and my husband couldn't accompany me. Little things like that still happen. If I'm being very honest, when my son was born, I had a picture in my mind of what our house would look like after 5 p.m. It involved my husband always being there and us all having quality family time. The fact that that didn't happen is what my real issue is. I know life gets in the way, but I'm concerned about how we're developing our bonds as a family sometimes. As far as chores go, we've hired some help and my mom being close really helps too, so that's not too big of an issue. Comment 2. This is so sad. Imagine having to go through all of this to force your spouse to spend time with you and your kid. It's sad that your idea of better is still him barely being around except for 1 full day a week. At the end of the day, if the choice was up to him, he would rather spend time tutoring than with you and his own child. That's because he's not doing it for money like he said. He's doing it so he doesn't have to be around you guys. It's so sad that you've accepted it. Comment 3. It sounds as if the situation is still sort of a work in progress, but is getting more positive for both of you and resentment isn't growing on either side. That's good, and congratulations on your daughter. Stories number 7. Aita, for being very angry with my younger brother for what he said about my girlfriend. I am 22, have been dating my girlfriend, F21, for 4 years and I love her about as much as it's possible to love anyone. I honestly melt inside at just the thought of her. My girlfriend speaks with a stutter which I know she is self-conscious about. Yesterday I was chilling at home with my girlfriend. I live at home but she had come to visit, and at the same time my brother who is 16 had some friends over and they were playing video games in his room. I also have a sister who is 18. My girlfriend went to the bathroom and when she came back she was crying. When I asked her why she was crying she told me that on her way back from the bathroom she was walking past my brother's room and she overheard him saying to his friends that I had that stupid girl who doesn't know how to speak with me and that he doesn't know why I would be with a weird girl who can't talk properly. I am very angry about this, and after my girlfriend had gone home I immediately told my parents about what my brother had said. My parents just said that my brother is just a kid, and they called my girlfriend too sensitive and claimed that it wasn't a big deal. I absolutely lost my temper with my parents as well as my brother who I called a nasty disrespectful pig. I then went to my girlfriend's house and stayed with her and her cats, because I was so angry with my parents. My parents have been texting me saying I'm overreacting and continuing to say my brother is just a kid. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your brother is a kid, and childhood years are for making mistakes and learning consequences. I'm sorry your parents reacted the way they did because it sounds like they make excuses for him and not preparing him for adulthood. I doubt you'll change them, so do what you think it's right. It sounds like for now the consequence for your brother is an altered relationship with you. I would express to your parents that 16 is closer to adult than child and you're very disappointed at your brother, but more so their reaction. Also, I don't mean to stir the pot, but is it possible your parents brushed it off because he's echoing stuff they say? By the way, mom of 22 and 18 years old, so semi-expert. NTA. Reply. If my parents have been talking about her like that then I'm moving out permanently. Commenter 2. Ah, that's nice, your parents enabling their arsehole 16-year-old son to be a nasty piece of work. You're right to be pissed with him and them. They should be knocking that on the head. He's old enough to know better. You're not the here, but your family, minus sis, are and should be ashamed of themselves. Reply. My sister honestly looked like she was ashamed at our parents and brother. Commenter 3. One thing to keep in mind here, is that she overheard him talking to his friends and did not say this to her face. Although the parents blowing it off is suspect. How do they feel about your girlfriend's stutter? Have they made comments about her behind your back that the brother may have overheard, and that's why they are hesitant about confronting him? I feel bad for your girlfriend. Having a stutter is hard enough to deal with and to be self-conscious of, let alone having someone close to you mocking her. Reply. It's very odd because my dad has always been nice to her and my mum has actually been very affectionate towards her, so for them to disregard her feelings seems very two-faced. If my parents have been saying mean things about her, I am definitely moving out. Commenter 4, a very rude kid that makes fun of people for something they can't help. This rude kid will turn into an adult asshole with parents like that. Update 1. When I had calmed down, I took some of the advice I had received in the comments and I approached my brother to talk to him calmly about what he said, and my girlfriend decided to come with me. Anyway, my brother did apologize to both of us. We asked him to explain honestly why he said it. My brother admitted that he was trying to look cool in front of his friends. My brother also told us that these same friends had been teasing him for not having a girlfriend after the girl he asked out rejected him. I asked if he was jealous of me because I have a girlfriend, and he admitted that he was jealous, especially after he got teased after being rejected. Anyway, me and my girlfriend discussed the situation with my brother and we explained to him that these boys are clearly not true friends judging by the way they are acting. We further explained to him that he shouldn't feel like he has to act cool to impress people, and we also reminded him that saying mean things about someone is definitely not cool. We advised my brother to stick up for himself and to not hang out with these people who tease him, and that he should report them if it gets worse. My brother did apologize to me and my girlfriend. Some people in the comments suggested he might have heard my parents commenting on the way my girlfriend speaks, however my brother insisted that this is not the case. I don't know whether to believe him about that or not. After the chat we had with my brother, I told my parents about how disappointed I was with them and about how me and my girlfriend had just done what they should have. I am extremely disappointed in my parents as I really trusted them to be better than this, and unfortunately things have not changed with them. My parents were angry with us for talking to my brother about this and they claimed we were both overreacting. I made it clear to my parents that actually they are underreacting. I told my parents that they should be thanking us for doing the job that they can't be bothered to do. Unfortunately, my sister has been having some trouble with my parents because she tried to talk to them about this situation. Because of the way that my parents are acting, I am going to move in with my girlfriend and her cats permanently. Tomorrow I am taking my girlfriend on a surprise vacation for Valentine's Day, as I know my girl loves a nice surprise. In a couple of weeks, when we get back from the vacation, I will move in with her and my sister is also moving in with us. Me and my girlfriend have both told my sister that when we move in together she is welcome to come, as my girlfriend's place has a spare room and my sister was very eager to accept the offer to get away from our parents. My girlfriend and my sister are very close and honestly act like sisters themselves, so the three of us living in the same place will be great. My girlfriend also assured my brother that she forgives him and he is still welcome to visit. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your parents are reacting that way because they are the ones who have been shit talking about your GF when you're not around. Your brother denied it, but it's obvious. Reply. It does seem like it, unfortunately. If that is the case, I hope my brother will trust us enough to tell us that eventually. Commenter 2. Make a point to stay involved and check in on your brother. He may feel left out with both of you moving and being left with the parents, and that can easily turn to resentment. Reply. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep spending time with him. Does the rest of OOP's extended family know what happened? Reply. I do have aunts and uncles as well as cousins who have mostly supported me in this situation. Further update. Aita for being very angry with my younger brother for what he said about my girlfriend. March 9, 2025, 3.5 weeks later. So quite a few people commented that they would like an update about how the move went, and it has now been a few days since the move. The same day my girlfriend and I got back from vacation, I officially moved in with her and her cats, and the day after that my sister joined us as planned. My sister, who is 18, didn't want the inevitable fight with our parents, so she left a note and snuck out at night where me and my girlfriend were waiting to pick her up. My brother was aware that my sister was doing this, but he kept his promise to keep quiet about it. Anyway, it is all going very well. The three of us were of course expecting my parents to come round to our house to have a go at us, but we are surprised and relieved that they didn't. My parents have sent a few messages saying how disappointed they are, which is really hypocritical and frankly laughable. Me, my sister and my girlfriend, and the cats, are all getting on very well. I took some of the advice I received in the comments. I was advised, for example, that we need to have a list and make sure to add something to the list if we use it up. That advice is proving extremely useful. Someone else commented that I need to make an offering unto the cats. The cats knew me but they didn't know my sister, so she got them some treats as an offering. Anyway, it's going fantastic, thanks for the comments. Cats tax. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, wonderful. I hope your brother stops trying for approval from false friends and does better than your parents expect, but I'm glad you and your sister were able to escape from them. Reply. Yeah, I will make sure to keep speaking to my brother and spending time with him when possible. Commenter 2, fantastic. Once y'all are in good with the furry overlords of the home, you're in. How is OOP's brother doing? Reply. I will do my best to make sure he is okay. I'm keeping in contact with him and will still see him when I can. If he is able to visit us he will be very welcome too. Stories number 8. Aita for wanting to break up with my GF because I was a dare date. Never thought I'd have to use this old account, but I'm really stuck and need some advice before I potentially nuke what has been so far a good 8-month relationship. So for a quick background. My GF, 24F, and I, 27M, have been dating for around 8 months now. I first met her at a funeral of all places. I wasn't close to the deceased, they were a friend's uncle, I was just along to keep him company. In any case I wasn't particularly sad looking. I was talking with a family friend and smiling, which she noticed and made a pretty morbid joke asking if I put him in a casket. It was so blunt I just sort of laughed and we got to chatting all afternoon, ending up with her number in my phone by the end of it. She was funny, witty, pretty and a genuinely fun girl to be around. So of course I took a chance and asked her out, which she accepted rather eagerly. My ego was through the roof at that, little did I know. I came home a little earlier from work last night, I was covering a shift and the bloke I was covering came in anyway, so they didn't need me for 8 hours. Anyway I came home earlier than planned and overheard my GF laughing with someone on her phone. I was about to surprise her with a little jump scare when she said and I quote, "I never meant for this whole thing with BF to last so long. I'd never normally date someone like him." She spotted me shortly after saying that, I admit, I made a noise I can't even begin to explain and she heard me. I'd never seen someone go that pale before. She was all wide teary eyes and quivering lips. GF then spent the next hour or so confessing that she never planned to date me, but once her friends found out she'd given me her number, they found a pic of me online and apparently found me so hilariously unattractive that GF just had to fake date me for a week to give me hope. I wish I was joking. Her friends and apparently GF are all still stuck in their mean girl high school phase. GF agreed but I guess apparently forgot about it because we've been dating for 8 months, not 1 week. She told me that she was stupid for agreeing with it and that I was a really good bloke, and that she really did love me but she never expected to actually feel that way about me. Why? Because I'm not her usual type of guy. When I asked her to elaborate, she mumbled that she didn't initially find me attractive at all, but after dating for a few weeks she stopped caring about my looks. I admit I sort of lost my temper here and called her an immature waste of my time. I told her I wished she'd just dumped me a week into dating because to find all this shit out 8 months in, when I cared about her, loved her was fucking foul. I'm staying with my mom at the moment because I need space to think and vent. Would I be TA if I dumped GF for this? Edit, wow, okay. Did not expect this much feedback, blimey. So I've turned my phone back on and it's a mess of texts, voicemails and missed calls. I've only listened to a couple but she's absolutely sobbing her heart out and pleading for me to come home so she can explain. Nothing from her friends mind you, just her. Says it all really. No idea what to do, but now I feel like rubbish. Comments. Commenter 1. Is she still friends with all those mean girls? Reply. Given that she was chatting to one of them yesterday, yeah I think so. Commenter 2. Sounds like the conversation was about teasing her for still being with you. You're completely justified in feeling the way that you do. Commenter 3. This is a huge and valid point. It isn't like this is just a thing they all realized was foolish and now avoid. If by any miracle OP stays, every single friend must go. She can be who she is with OP or who she is with them. She can no longer be both because they are in absolute opposition. Commenter 4. NTA. Even if you didn't care about the joke part of it, she didn't go out with you because she wanted to, but was pushed by her friends. And then what? Did she give a play-by-play after your first date to said friends? Did she share your intimate moments with the friends? Was your first kiss also a joke? Was she hesitate to kiss you cause of the joke? Did she even want to kiss you? It's thoughts like that would drive me nuts cause at what point did her joke turn into real affection? Or was she cringing and flinching for those first few dates? How can you be with someone who thought you were gross for how long? Weeks? Days? NTA. Commenter 5. That's the same shit on my mind. I mean she didn't act strange or hesitant when we started dating. She was funny and cute and demanded we hold hands on our second date, but was it all a funny story to tell her friends? Was she laughing at how pathetically happy I was dating someone out of my league? I dunno. It's driving me insane thinking about it. I've already chucked up, I just feel sick and tired and used. Commenter 6. Given everything you've said I can guarantee that woman isn't out of your league, she's very much beneath you. Like she's not even sorry, she just seems to still think you should be grateful she stopped caring how you look, WTF, and tries to justify her shitty behavior. Even if you somehow forgave her you'd never be able to forget. Cut your losses, be careful in the future but don't let it stop you from finding a real relationship with someone who doesn't think hurting people is a joke. Commenter 7. Your first sentence is so important. You deserve so much better than someone who will always look down on you for not being what she deems, conventionally, attractive. You deserve better than someone who thinks you should be grateful that they graced you with their presence. You deserve a partner who values you. Update. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented. The good, the bad and the downright bizarre. Now on to the update. So I eventually turned my phone back on after making the original post and was bombarded with voicemails and texts and whatnot. I only listened to a couple and GF was sobbing her heart out on all of them, more or less begging me to come home and let her explain. To be fair, I didn't really have much choice but to eventually go back home anyway. It's a house share and I pay rent to live there. Plus my own mom was basically nudging me back out to let GF explain herself. So I went back home the next day and she pretty much tore out of her room and threw herself at me. She was sobbing and trying to talk but kept crying too hard between her words to sound coherent. I know I should have probably been angrier, but I hate seeing her cry. And she wasn't just crying, she was sobbing so hard she was having trouble breathing at a few points. Eventually I got her to sit down and asked her to explain exactly why I should stay with a woman who not only got with me as a dare but also still laughed about it with her vapid friends 8 months on. A lot was said, and to summarize it so this update doesn't take all night, she more or less said this. Fake names for her friends, and I'm likely paraphrasing, but I've spent about 40 minutes trying to remember it exactly, so this is the gist of it. GF, I didn't mean to ask you out on a dare, I wanted to date you before they even knew about you. I gave you my number first, remember? When Stacy and Tina found out I gave you my number, they looked you up on Facebook and found it hilarious that you were even trying with me. So they got this stupid fucking dare thing and told me to do it to give all uglies in the world hope. Me, wow, real mature. You do remember what you said on the phone to whoever it was, right? That you never meant for us to last this long. You told me I wasn't your type. What's your type, GF? Not me, right? Too ugly for you. GF, stop saying that. You're not ugly. You're just not the type of bloke I'd have picked to date long term. But I was wrong, babe. Look at us, we've lasted nearly 9 months. I love you so much, I really do. How can I prove it to you? How? Me, I don't know, GF. I love you too. But all I can think about is you laughing about me behind my back to them. How can I trust you anymore? GF, I wasn't meaningfully laughing at you. I swear I wasn't. I just don't know how to handle Tina any other way. She's always been like this. And I just go along with it to keep the peace. Me, so you'd rather keep the peace than stand up for me? Is that what you're saying? GF, you're twisting my words, babe. Me, no I'm not. God, why should I stay with you, GF? Seriously, give me a reason. You laugh behind my back. You dated me on a dare given to you by Tina and Stacy, right? And you're still friends with them. You chose them and their cruelty over us and what we have. GF, we've been friends for years though. Me, I fucking give up. At this point it was just a back and forth of me trying to walk away and her professing her love and defending her friendship with the Wonder Twins while trying to make me sit back down. I don't know, guys. I'm back home, she's constantly trying to have another talk. I'm tired. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Advice would be wonderful, because I'm very tempted to just pack it in. Comments. Commenter 1. I'd have too much pride to stay. Be second-guessing everything all the time. How exhausting. Commenter 2. From what I have read, GF failed to resolve the situation. She continues to defend her friends, dismissing their behavior by saying, it's just the way they are. She remains close with these friends, laughs with them at OP's expense, joins in their jokes about him, and allows them to disrespect him without taking any action. Despite all this, she chooses to maintain her friendship with them. To me, this feels like siding with her friends over her boyfriend. Where has she stood up for him? Where has she defended him? Where has she expressed disagreement with the jokes and the disrespectful comments aimed at him? I just don't see it. Commenter 3. NTA Jesus Christ man, she just seems like she regrets being caught in general. I say that you just drop her because this ugly has hope that he will find someone beautiful both inside and out. Or tell her that if she truly wishes to make amends, she stops associating with high school mean girls. BC that constant influence in her life will definitely haunt your relationship going forward. If she says, but we've been friends for years, say, great, so do you want years or possibly decades with somebody you truly love? Or do you want more years of that horrible influence ruining all your relationships, taking advice from children who I definitely will never want to hang out or get along with? If my friends thought you were a complete monster or disgusting to look at and laughed at it on the phone with me behind your back, you're really cool with me hanging out with them just BC. I met them first before you several years ago. Then when she, hopefully, says, no, that's when you say, exactly, so make your choice. If she says, yes, I'm cool with that, then say, perfect. I would rather date someone with as much self-respect as I have, so enjoy your single friends keeping you single BYEE. Commenter 4. Those girls are the mean girls and there's a chance your GF is in a controlling friendship with them. If you love her and want to be with her, then tell her she needs to let go of these two girls, at least for a certain amount of time. If she can't do that, then there's no hope, because they are going to trash you always. Hell, they probably talk shit about your GF as well, so this is on her now. It's very possible to not be completely into a person at the start, and once you get to know them, you see them in a different light. Stories number 9. Aita for forcing my wife to choose between our marriage and having more kids. My wife and I, both 31, have been married for 8 years and we have 2 kids 4 and under together. We had always discussed that the size of our family would depend on how we felt while we were having kids, but we both wanted more than one. After the birth of our second child I realized I was done, and I told my wife too was it for me. She said that was okay with her, but that has changed and it's now causing problems. 6 or so months ago my wife told me she wanted at least one more child, and I told her I understood, but I didn't and couldn't do another kid. She asked me what she could do to change my mind. She said we could do daycare 5 days a week regardless of whether we're working or not. She suggested using our families to babysit more often so we'd have more time off. She suggested that she would go back to her old job so we'd have more money. A job that she hated and was glad to leave, and she swore she would never return to. One she vented about on a regular basis. While I believe she would do it, I don't think that would help us out long term because she'd just be extra stressed. At one point she even suggested I didn't need to be all in for more than the 2 we have, and she'd understand if I was less hands-on with the next baby and child. That horrified me because when she talked about it she said she'd understand that the 3rd child would be the one she wanted and not me, and she'd take responsibility for that. I can't imagine having a child and treating them differently. To even suggest that it would be okay shocked me, and I told my wife that my reasons for feeling done are all different from each other but complete the feeling for me. My wife has already experienced 2 very difficult pregnancies, and when she was pregnant with our younger child I found it incredibly stressful to juggle everything, especially when she was hospitalized. The balancing act between being there for our child who missed their mom like crazy and cried for her, to my wife who needed cheering up and encouragement and support and working full-time while also taking care of the kids. Not to mention during that time her sister and I had a major disagreement because I didn't step up and babysit for her on 3 different occasions while my wife was in the hospital and I was already balancing a lot. That's a disagreement we have not recovered from either. Her sister and I are civil but not friendly like we used to be. Another reason is the money. We spend a large amount on childcare already without adding another. Then I think of the future and how I want to keep saving for them. One of our kids has some medical issues, and while it's nothing life-threatening, medications are required and that costs money. I want to be able to put them in activities they enjoy. So overall financially I feel more comfortable with us having 2. The other part is time. We're already busy and I want to spend time with my wife and kids. Both 1:1 time and family time. Some weeks we don't get as much as I'd like and it's a lot of work parenting small kids. I don't feel like I have the mental energy to add another to the mix. Even thinking about it makes me feel exhausted. I enjoy the family we have now. It's never too much. But I personally feel like, for me, it would be. And ignoring one of my kids would not be an option for me. I have explained all of this to my wife and she still believes we can figure out something that can make us both happy or work for us both. Prior to 6 months ago we had discussed my getting a vasectomy and I even booked a consult to discuss it. My wife told me she wanted me to put it on hold when this discussion came up. And now we've reached a point where my wife has admitted to me that while she doesn't want a divorce she resents my refusal to give in and will resent me if I won't have more children with her, at least one more. She told me she won't be able to help it because she feels this burning desire for more kids. She told me I won't even try her compromises. I told her it's too late to compromise when a child is already here. I told her we can't take a 3rd child back. And I can't be a dad who fucks their kids up by ignoring one or more. So I told my wife she needed to make a decision once and for all. Accept having 2 kids and work through any resentment so we can try to stay married or end our marriage and she can find someone else to have a 3rd child with. I told her I am firmly done. My wife told me it's not fair to give her an ultimatum like this. Maybe she's right. But she wants to deal with this between us and nobody else, and for 6 months we have made no progress. She's just growing to resent me more every day because I won't give her a third child. Aita, ETA, just to clarify a point, my wife has a job. She's always had a job. The offer to go back to her old job is her old employer where she was miserable. She likes where she works now, but they don't pay as much. Stories number 10. Aita, for sterilizing myself against my partner's wishes. Okay Reddit, I need some unbiased outside opinions because I truly feel like I'm going crazy dealing with this situation. I, 28F, and my partner, 28M, have 2 children together and have been married for 8 years. For those 8 years I've either been on birth control when we were preventing pregnancy or tracking my cycle when we were trying to conceive, adding this just to give the community the context that reproductive responsibility has always fallen on my shoulders. Recently we discussed the possibility of being done with children since we have our 2 and the family really feels complete. My partner is in agreement that a third child is off the table for him as well. So with that I thought, great. I can bring up sterilization for either him or I. The reason I wanted this is because I've had every form of birth control before and none of them ever left me feeling 100% okay, so I wanted to be done with birth control completely since we both agreed we're done. It's been about 3 months since our talk about more children, so I brought up either getting a vasectomy for him or me getting a salpingectomy, removing my fallopian tubes. What I thought would be a productive conversation completely blew up. He outright refused a vasectomy, and when I was okay with that and said I'd happily get a salpingectomy, he completely flipped his shit on me, screaming at me about how he forbids it from happening and he won't allow me to damage myself like that. I ended up just leaving the conversation and headed to get our kids from school, but on the way I ended up calling my gynecologist to schedule a consultation for the salpingectomy after making sure I won't need my spouse's approval. So Reddit, Aita, if I go through with the sterilization against my partner's wishes? Relevant comments. OOP responds to multiple comments about women needing their husband's approval for this to take place with the sterilization. Reply, actually yes, sadly, my friend had hers done a few months ago and her gynecologist required a sit-down consultation with both her and her husband as well as a form stating that they understood the procedure and agreed to it, signed by both parties. Commenter 1, EW. He just tipped his hand to how he really feels, and it's unsavory. You're NTA, and I hate that you're questioning that. Your body. Your choice. You're done with kids, and this is a logical step. Why does he feel this way so strongly on both of you? What has him so twisted? Reply, I honestly wish I knew. He seems supportive of our friends, both men and women, who have had sterilization procedures. OOP's location. Reply, US, Louisiana. Is the husband usually that controlling? Reply, no, he's never shown any controlling behavior before, it's completely blindsided me. OOP should hide her birth control so her husband can't get to them. Reply, thankfully I have the IUD, it's been a bitch to my period but it's done the job. Update 1. Due to the support and advice I found on here, I managed to get the confidence and level headspace needed to try to have another conversation with my partner. After getting our children to their school daycare for the day, I went to our local coffee shop to pick us up each a cup. I figured it can either be seen as a show of care or a peace offering. Once I got home, he was sitting at our island doom scrolling through TikTok. I think we've all been there. I decided standing across from him would be a bit of a better choice, so I gave us our respective cups and asked if I could get his attention for a conversation. Well, what I hoped would be productive turned unproductive quickly as he sighed with an eye roll and turned off his phone. I started by asking the big question of if he wanted any more children. I even suggested he doesn't think about what I said on the subject and just tell me his feelings about more children. With that, he answered a firm no and told me, as he said before, a third child is and will always be off the table. I then asked him if he had any fears or concerns about surgery's medical procedures. He said no to this question as well. So I asked if he understood the procedure and what it entailed, and he said yes he does, which is why he doesn't want me to get it done. In his words, I wouldn't be a woman if I got any part of my reproductive organs, what makes me a woman, removed, and he refuses to allow me down that path. I then followed up by asking about his getting a vasectomy, and he said it's pretty much the same thing for men and he won't let anyone take away if manhood. The final question I managed to ask was, did he just expect me to be on birth control forever? And this man looked me in face and said, it's worked so well for me already, why change things up? Guys, as I stated in my previous post, I am miserable and in debilitating pain with birth control. At the end of this, I just grabbed my coffee and went sit on our porch, just trying to wrap my head around the conversation while he sit in the house acting like nothing is wrong and we're just having a normal day off together. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I'm trying to find a respectful way to ask this but not coming up with anything, so I'm just going to ask. Does your husband have any sort of intellectual impairment? The idea that you aren't a woman if you have surgery is so ridiculous that I can't believe a person with a 3-digit IQ would suggest that. Is there any possibility that he'd participate in couples counseling? Reply, as far as I'm aware he's perfectly fine mentally. I even would have called him intelligent before these recent discussions. Commenter 2, so he's already told you and shown you he doesn't care that you are in pain. What else can we tell you, honey? He doesn't care for you in the same way you care for him. Reply, I'm definitely realizing that, makes me feel like every time he's taken care of me due to the birth control issues was just a lie. Has OOP considered about other types of birth control before going on the sterilizing journey? Reply, considering I've worked with my actual doctor very closely since I've turned 18 to find a birth control that works well for me, and they agree that my problems are caused by my birth control, for example being a bloody pain-filled mess unable to get out of bed during my periods, I think I'll stick to my doctor's evaluations. OOP explains the side effects. Reply, so my minor side effects are a heavy blood flow that I am constantly ruining clothes during my periods, pain so bad that I'm either unable to get out of bed or I pass out from it, depressive episodes, suicidal thoughts, and weight gain. The best times of my life is when I was off of birth control while we were trying to conceive our children. If wanting to be able to feel like that all the time is over emotional, then I guess I am. Update 2. Hey Reddit, I just wanted to give a small update. I've been reading all of your comments on my last 2 posts, I swear. I appreciate all the advice and kind words, sometimes even the unkind words, because it gives me more to think about. So to start, I've been at my sister's with the children all weekend. I told my husband that she was feeling lonely and wanted us to stay over. He believed it, as we usually try to do this once a month. I called off of work Monday so my sister and I can meet with the divorce lawyer that handled her divorce. I'm unsure if divorce will be the path I go down, but I want to get my ducks in a row before laying it all down for my husband. Also, I would like to answer some questions that I saw a lot of in my last post. Yes, I still plan to go through with the sterilization. I absolutely don't want any more children even if this ends in divorce. I plan to tell him it's getting done no matter what he says or believes. There will definitely be no sex with him anymore. I feel like I lost all attraction and respect for him. The children don't know what's going on, they just think it's a fun time at Auntie's house. Condoms are a no. I exist because of a broken condom face with tears of joy. I currently have an IUD, and while yes, it has been the best birth control I've been on, I still cannot function properly for a week out of the month due to pain, bleeding, and depressive episodes. No, he hasn't done anything like this before, which is what caught me so off guard with everything. Disagreements in our relationship have up until now been able to be discussed and compromised on. We grew up in a deep Catholic community but fell away from the church years ago. Commenter 1. I plan to tell him it's getting done no matter what he says or believes. Stop right there. He will clean out your bank accounts. Get this done quietly and quickly. Do not under any circumstances warn this man. Do not dismiss the seriousness of this moment. This is how you get dead. Reply, thankfully our finances for the most part are separated. The only joint bank account we have is for bills and child expenses. OOP's thoughts on getting the procedure. Reply, I want the procedure for myself no matter my relationship status. I want to be done with birth control without a chance of children no matter where the future takes me. As well as the fact that this procedure reduces the risk of cervical cancer significantly, which it's common in my family, so that's a plus. I haven't fallen out of love with him per se, but I truly hold no respect for him right now with how he's treated me over this. I'm unsure if we will divorce, but I feel like it might be for the best, especially if to him this will damage me. Stories number 11. My mother wants to write to the newspaper about my tragic story of shattered dreams, and nothing I say can stop her. I'm a 20-something woman in tech. Since day one, I had to fight for a place in this field, convincing interviewers that I could do more than customer support, that I deserve the same opportunities my male counterparts have. To this day, I have only had 3 jobs: tech support, trainee, and junior developer, and I worked really hard to get each of them. The problem started when I lost my last job. I returned from a sick leave only to find out I was no longer an employee. My co-workers were shocked and outraged to the point they made my boss apologize. I consulted a lawyer, but there was nothing that could be done. I immediately polished my resume and started job searching. However, the job market toughened during the time I was away. If I get a call, I never go further than the technical interview. Ever. Enter my parents. They are a bad case of helicopter parents, overprotective and scared. They are the type that would demand full names and phone numbers of everyone at a birthday party, only to drag you out of it hours later because they found someone has a tattoo. They disapproved my choice of career path since day one, saying that is dangerous, full of men, and not a place for a sweet girl like you. They are both retired teachers, and still insist that their field, high school education, is the best thing that could happen to anyone. They wish to see me at a high school, teaching teenagers how to type, use text processors and spreadsheets and write letters. When I tell them that that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life, they become aggressive and tell me I should be grateful they pay for my food and haven't kicked me out yet. A few weeks ago, my father approached me when my mother was shopping and told me that she's planning to send a letter telling my tragic story of shattered dreams at the hands of greedy and abusive corporations to a local newspaper. I've seen her staying awake until late hours, but I never imagined this could be the reason. When I approached her, she got defensive and started to say things like, "I do this because I love you, you'll thank me later, this is the only way you'll be able to get a job, and, do you want to end up like your cousin?" My cousin has an art degree and her unsuccessful job search and minimum wage jobs drove to severe depression and now she lives on welfare. I tried to explain her that I don't think this is the way, and that I don't want to get a job because someone out there pities me, or to be the result of a public relations campaign and become a check in the diversity box. Even if she doesn't mention my name, hers will still appear, and as her Facebook profile is linked to my father stating their relationship, as in, married to John Smith since 1983, anyone will be able to find me. Is there anything else I can say to persuade her to drop the subject? Update. Remember my boss, the one who apologized the day I was informed of my layoff? It turned out that he wasn't involved in the process at all. The manager, the only one allowed to fire and lay off people, thought I was a no-show and decided not to renew my contract while my boss was working from the client offices, without consulting him first. So, when he was told the news he went nuts. The manager returned to our office several weeks later, and my boss confronted him in a loud and angry discussion, and then rage quit. Soon after he left, he was offered a position in a small consulting company created by a local university teacher, and then referred me to the owner, who hired me on the spot. However, not everyone was happy. My father criticized my decision, claiming that it's too small to be a serious company. On the other side, my mother claims that my ex-boss helping me get a job means he's in love with me. To me, that doesn't make sense. I didn't even try to explain her that pooping where you eat it's a really bad idea, and I decided to shrug every time she asks me if there is a hot single guy there. And regarding the letter, I'm pretty much sure it wasn't published. I googled my mother's maiden and married name and myself 3 times a week and nothing of the sort showed up, so I think I can focus in my new job now. Stories number 12. Me, 36F, interacting with weird, 40-ish M, in gaming group situation. Really? Okay, first of all there's me. A 36 years old female, some geeky tendencies, but more of a science nerd. Glasses, short dark hair, questionable fashion sense, slightly overweight, divorced a year or so ago, not interested in dating at all, but worked in social jobs for many years, so can smile and chit-chat without staring at my shoes like a mostly normal human. Second on our cast of characters, there's this dude, let's call him Bob, because that isn't his name. I met him at a local board gaming group. He honestly, not making this up, has a neckbeard, wears a dingy old trench coat when it is cold, and owns at least one fedora. He probably weighs north of 400 pounds. He's very socially awkward, but seriously folks, it's a gaming group. Pretty much everyone is awkward. After attending a few gaming meets and chatting with multiple people, it became obvious that Bob and I share some superficial interests. I mentioned an obscure film I was planning to attend, and Bob asked if he could tag along. I hesitated, knowing there was some risk that he'd fixate on me, but decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, fuck it, I can be friends with the weird, heavy, trench coat guy, right? All people need friends, and it'd be nice to have a friend who liked some of the same obscura. Anyway, I'd been open with the group about being divorced and enjoying being by myself, not wanting a relationship. Additionally, at the time of the movie conversations, I actually said out loud to him, okay, it would be cool if a friend comes with me. At the film, while waiting for it to start, we were discussing families, the do you have any siblings type small talk, and in this context I again said that I just got out of a difficult relationship, and I'm not looking for or interested in a relationship right now. I really enjoy being single. Our interaction at the movie was basically fine with a few awkward pauses, and we parted ways pleasantly. I figured everything was fine, I was making a new friend, and went on my merry, blithe way. Oh how wrong I was. A few weeks later, there was another gaming meet. Sometimes folks got together for a drink afterwards, and it ended up being just me and Bob. Fine, whatever. Well, about 10 minutes into the conversation he told me he'd gotten us tickets to a gaming convention a few months and a few states away and asked about making plans to go. What? This was an event he'd mentioned in passing at the movie as something a few members of the group went to annually, and I'd said I don't usually do conventions but might consider getting myself a ticket. This con does not sell out, tickets are still available day of. I was flabbergasted, and told him that I hadn't decided whether I wanted to go or not, and wasn't really planning to. He basically ignored that and said, well, when you want the ticket, it'll be here. Ooh okay. I said, I really don't think I'll want it, so you might think about reselling it, and resolved to finish my drink and GTFO of the bar. As I was slamming my gimlet, he first said that then we should also go to a different convention together, then said that he'd found an old LinkedIn profile of mine and asked a question about it. Dude, you just told me that you'd been internet stalking me. Uncool. I just wanted to get out of there at this point, mumbled something about not having updated that profile in forever, said I had to go, left some money on the table and bailed. I had no desire to feed any more of his fantasy, which clearly ended with us flying away into the sunset on a pair of dragons with matching Tolkien-inscribed rings and me in a plump Leia costume. I stayed away from the gaming group for several weeks, mostly because a family member was having health issues and that ate my time, but I also didn't make an effort to go because I didn't want to see Bob. During that time he sent me a few text messages that I did not reply to, mostly inane stuff about his day, a few about things we should go to together, and one telling me he'd bought me some candy complete with inappropriate blushing smiley icon. I guess that was to lure me into replying so I could get the free candy and he could see me. I dunno. I mean, I'm adult, I can buy my own damn candy. Anyway, I'm really missing the gaming group, as everyone else there seems okay. I was planning to just show up at the meeting tonight until I got a text message from Bob inviting me to the group I'm already part of. Seriously? Now if I go, I feel like he'll think I'm going to meet him, which a big ol' hell no. Yuck. This is a very unfamiliar situation for me as I've spent most of my adult life married, which seems to have allowed me to avoid this sort of thing. So, I have none of the clever tools that would allow me to dance out of this weirdness. Honestly, I'd just ditch the group and tell Bob I never want to see him again, and hope that would actually deter him, but I live in a very small city and would like to stay part of this group as there just aren't any other options. But obviously, I don't want any more of this dude's attention. Has anyone successfully navigated this type of situation? I don't really want to be mean, and suspect that being direct would cause him to either make me his constant target or to simply ignore it and continue to fixate. Maybe a bit of both, honestly. Help. TLDR, real-life sighting of mythical trenchcoat fedora neck beard, complete with grainy photos. Nessie has decided that I'm his fedora queen and is going full creeper. How to stay part of fun social group in spite of being unwillingly cast as leading lady in his delusional reality. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You've been hanging out with a dude who fits, like a glove, a stereotype of people who are notoriously bad at picking up subtle cues, and you've been indicating your lack of availability via subtle cues. So that's your problem right there. Thankfully, the blushing smiley and the candy provide you with a route to talk to him about this. It's time to be direct. Before you go to the next meeting, you need to tell him this via email or whatever. Hi, Bob. I just wanted to send a quick message to be sure about something. I'm not always super great at reading situations, and my read on this one may be wrong, but I'd rather say something and be wrong than be unfair by not saying anything. Some of our interactions, the blushing smiley and note about the candy and whatnot, buying me tickets for a con I hadn't said I was definitely going to, and inviting me out to things, have felt an awful lot like you've been trying to pursue me romantically. If I'm wrong about that and you're just being friendly, I apologize for reading this the wrong way. But if I'm right, I need to be clear that while I think you're a great guy, butter him up in whatever way you deem appropriate. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong about this. Thanks, and have a great day. If his reaction is in any way not completely cool, you should raise this with other people in the group. Nerds typically hate excluding people, but I guarantee you that you're not the first woman he's done this to and you're not the first woman he's scared away from the group. Reply. Wow, is explicitly saying that I don't want to date multiple times a subtle clue? Not trying to argue at all, just honestly surprised. I think this is the best advice so far, as it allows him to save face by placing a potential misunderstanding on me, but also makes everything very clear. Hopefully that'll give him an okay mental space to detach in. Group-wise, I'm fairly new to the group, and Bob has been a main part of it for a couple years. Unfortunately, I'm certain that if this doesn't work I'd have a better time ditching the group than trying to get help from other members. Thank you for the advice. Commenter 2. Wow, is explicitly saying that I don't want to date multiple times a subtle clue? Not trying to argue at all, just honestly surprised. Well, it wouldn't be to me, but to someone who's ignorant of other people's boundaries, it's subtle. Because you're saying you don't want to date. So what he hears is that right now you don't want to date anyone, which means he can put himself in position for when you do want to date someone. The thing about creepers like this dude is that they will take any out they can get if it means they can go on believing you want them. If you say, I don't want to date right now, they'll hear that you might want to date later. If you say, I'm not looking to date, they'll hear that they should stick around because when you do want to date, you'll want them. If you say, I don't want to ruin our friendship, they'll take it to mean you totally want them but you just need to be convinced that dating them will only make your friendship better. Anything short of spelling it out in inescapable 10-foot tall neon letters is not going to work. You have to be completely explicit. It sucks, because society really does not prepare us for rejecting others, but there it is. Update the first. Hey, Bob. I was thinking about dropping by the gaming group tonight. I just wanted to send you a quick message about something, though. I'm not always great at reading situations, and my read on this one may be wrong, but I'd rather say something and be wrong than be unfair by not saying anything. Some of our interactions, buying me candy, other things he's done that might identify him, have felt an awful lot like you're trying to pursue me romantically. If I'm wrong and you're just being friendly, I apologize for reading that the wrong way, but if I'm right, I need to be clear that, while you seem like an okay guy, I am not interested in dating. I go to the gaming group to play games and socialize, and I don't want either of us to be uncomfortable with that. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong about this. Thanks, and hope you're having a great day, and got back the following. Okay, no explosion, but no, hey, that's cool. See you tonight either. So, I think I'll go to the group tonight and just see how he acts and go from there. Update the second. Sorry, this one is a little anticlimactic, guys. I went to gaming night and he didn't show up. On a pleasant note, I had a great time with the group. On the other hand, I feel like the real reaction may still be coming. Guess we'll just wait and see. I'll post an update if anything interesting occurs. Update. Also, before we get into the crunchy bits, let me also preface this by stating explicitly that I'm writing with a light, wry tone because this is one of those situations where if you don't laugh you'll end up crouched in the corner rocking on your heels, chewing your hair, and mumbling about space centipedes living in the wallpaper. And fuck space centipedes, man. Those buggers are wicked hard to get rid of once you get a proper infestation going. So, back to our two characters. When last we left them, there had been a brief exchange of text messages, and Bob was a no-show at game night. That was, however, not the end of things. A little over a day later, after Bob had proper time to really work up a good head full of insanity over the whole thing, I received a rambling, drunken 2 a.m. email. It was rife with misspellings, half-constructed sentences, ideas smashed together then pulled apart only to collide nonsensically later like bumper cars at the fair, extraneous words seemingly randomly scattered in all over the place, and really, deeply erratic spacebar and punctuation issues. There is way too much personal identifying info in the email to post the whole thing verbatim, and it is too incoherent to properly edit that stuff out and have any semblance of sense remain, so let me explain. No. There is too much. Let me sum up. Using quote format for ease of reading, it opened with an affirmation that he'd been trying to pursue me romantically, and noted that he was unskilled at such, but in a way that clearly asked for me to reassure him on this front. Then came the part of the note where he complimented me in the past tense, i.e. he did think I was a great person, and basically blamed me for perceiving his inappropriate come-ons as poor behavior, and stating that he'd always treated me with respect. I'm fairly certain this was supposed to draw me back in, to be an opening to reconnect with him and give me a chance to prove to him that I really am that incredibly awesome girl he used to think I was. Because what female wouldn't want to be with a guy who could think they were so inconceivably great as long as they completely conformed to his fantasy? How could I not understand? Also, Bob, internet stalking is not respectful. He then noted that he did not want to be like another guy in the group who openly pursues women. Here's the difference, very forward guy, when I said I wasn't interested in dating, got the message, buggered off immediately, and hasn't bothered me since. Abrupt jump to a lament about how he has no one in town to do things with, and how it was great to have me for that, but then of course we can't do that anymore. To fully appreciate the tone here, just go ahead and picture a single tear drifting down the cheek of a sad puppy with unusually large eyes, more lamenting on how he's been emotionally destroyed by the whole experience. And here you may wish to recall, dear reader, that Bob and I have only met in person about 6 times, most of those in a group setting. Then things got interesting. An odd little section was tacked on to the bottom. It looked like this had been written separately, and in a rather different state of mind, possibly by a different person. He stated that he'd avoid gaming with me in the future if I wished, but said that I should still come to the group, and that he didn't want to be the reason I stopped attending. Unclear if putting big girl panties on or fishing for further future contact. In short, y'all, it was fucked up, but with a curious coda. For my reply, I kept the following in mind. Much of his email seemed to contain an assumption that there would be further conversation, or at least that I would feel the need to reply to something in that mess that was meant to incite me or make me feel sorry for him, and therefore further contact. He clearly wanted to continue contact if at all possible. Also, I got the distinct feeling he thought he could argue his side and I would somehow come around to it. I refused to be drawn into that. I made my reply email short, blunt, and to the point, removing any doubt that there was any possibility of anything else. I leaned a bit on the harsh side this time, but only because I firmly believed it was necessary. Here it is. Hey, Bob, well, Drunken. 2 a.m. email was probably not the optimal way to address this. Look, I am an adult and am fine gaming with anyone who is socially appropriate and civil. That said, I feel no desire or necessity to continue this conversation. Please do not reply or contact me further outside of the group. Thanks, Don Talk to Mepples. So that's where it is at. We'll see how that works out for me. I'll update if any further eruptions. TLDR, rejected creepy dude as gently as possible. He fills my inbox with emotional vomit. I invoke no contact. May the FSM bless us with his noodly goodness and bring this situation to a tangy, delicious ending with comfortable fullness to all involved. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Cracking up at the stink of his desperation. You did good, OP. You did good. Reply. You know, the whole thing just makes me really sad. He is so caught up in his own head that he can't even be friends, which I would have been happy to be. The email was really all about him, not about how we relate at all, except for that last little bit, sort of. Who I really am as a person is both something has no idea about, and also is completely irrelevant to his process. I'm just someone with tits and a vagina in the way of his emotional freight train. I'm an NPC in the story of his life. Commenter 2. Also, Bob, internet stalking is not respectful. Could you elaborate on this comment? I love everything else you've written in both of your posts, you're seriously hilarious, but I'm not quite understanding why looking up an old LinkedIn profile is a social faux pas. I do that all the time after meeting new people, can you help me understand why it's inappropriate? Reply. Okay, 3 things here. First, I left some stuff out that made it plain that he'd been doing a serious search, trying to find everything he could. For example, he said, I didn't know your maiden name, so I couldn't really find anything. Second, and more importantly, context makes a huge difference. Say, in a professional networking session, I exchanged business cards with you. If I then received a LinkedIn request, cool. We were professionally networking, and that's correct protocol. Honestly, if I met someone new and they did a quick search on me to make sure I wasn't an axe murderer, and came across the LinkedIn profile, whatever. In that case, normally the person keeps the search to themselves, and we all proceed along with life, getting to know each other like normal people. However, doing a deep search on someone you recently met casually in a group situation, then creepily bringing it up after an awkward conversation pause by suddenly blurting out that you'd found their LinkedIn profile and asking them a really weird question about it, yeah, that'll probably creep them the fuck out. Plus, in my case, at that point, the conversation had already taken a weird turn, and the internet stalking revelation just added to the craziness. Third, motivation. This is a really, really gray area. But think of it this way, would you do the same search in the same social situation on a person that you're not at all attracted to? If yes, you're just curious, and that's pretty normal. If no, and the motivation of the search is to find out every little tidbit of information about that person because you must absolutely know and possess them, well, that there's dangerous waters. Anyway, you're probably fine. It really is a kind of gray area, but use common sense, and all will be okay. Commenter 3. I took that to mean that it was quite old, possibly hadn't been updated in a while, was abandoned, and so you'd need to go through a fair bit of effort to find it in the first place. Or maybe OP has a common name, so you'd need to be spending a lot of effort sorting through a million Jane Smiths to find her. I think there's a difference between discreetly looking someone up to verify they're not a psycho or check something they said, like, what did he say his band was called, and researching stalking them extensively as a means to gain an advantage over them or make the relationship feel closer artificially. To me, the fact that Bob was going through all that effort to find what appears to be an obscure internet artifact about her, and brought it up, suggests he was stalking her rather than casually looking her up. Reply. You are correct on both counts. The account had not been updated in more than 3 years, and I do have a fairly common name. I actually tried replicating the search, and it took some digging to find me. And even then, there were a few people in my old city with the same name in the same industry and no photo, so perhaps Bob's odd question was an effort to make sure he'd found the correct profile. I think there's a difference between discreetly looking someone up to verify they're not a psycho or check something they said, like, what did he say his band was called? And researching stalking them extensively as a means to gain an advantage over them or make the relationship feel closer artificially. You said this better than I did. Stories number 13. Should I still gift my sister the watch I bought from my first ever earnings? I'm a 22M from a middle-class family, and I'm currently gearing up to pursue my master's in the US later this year, something I'll be funding through scholarships and student loans. Recently, I completed an internship with an Indian IT company. The stipend wasn't much, but I was proud because it was my first time earning money on my own. One of the things I was most excited about was buying gifts for my family. It's something I'd always promised myself I'd do once I started earning. I wanted to make it special, so I carefully budgeted and managed to buy thoughtful gifts for my parents and my sister. For my sister's 20th birthday, I bought her a beautiful Titan analog watch worth 5,000 Indian rupees. It's not fancy, but I chose it because I felt it suited her style, and more importantly, it symbolized the bond we've had over the years. It wasn't just a watch to me, it was a gesture that carried a lot of heart. But here's where I'm feeling stuck. My older cousin, 27M, who's an MBA graduate from a top-tier Indian institute and earns a great salary, gifted her an Apple Watch Series 10, rose gold. Naturally, she was over the moon and told him she'd wear it 24/7. Seeing her so excited made me hesitate. Now I'm wondering if I should even give her the watch I bought. I know it's nowhere near as flashy or expensive as an Apple Watch, and I can't help but feel like my gift might seem insignificant in comparison. But at the same time, this wasn't just about the watch, it was about keeping my promise to her, and sharing something meaningful from my first ever earnings. I don't know what to do. Should I still give it to her? Will it seem underwhelming or thoughtful? I just don't want her to feel like my gift doesn't matter. Comments. Commenter 1. No, give it to her. My younger brother bought me a cup of coffee with his first pay, and I still remember that day and hold it close to my heart. Don't doubt the beautiful love you have for each other and compare it with materialistic things. Commenter 2. Gift it. My younger brother bought me a wall clock, not even a fancy one lol, with his first salary and I still use it till this day. It's the thought that counts. Commenter 3. Of course you should, look at it this way. The Titan watch is an analog watch and the Apple Watch is a smart one. She will have the best of both worlds and she can wear your watch with traditional or as a dress watch. So please go ahead and give. You can say since the cousin brought a smart watch you went with the analog one. Commenter 4. When giving a gift, it's the thought that counts. Not the monetary value. If I may give my 2 cents, you shouldn't feel any sort of apprehension when giving the gift to your sister because it's not as flashy or expensive as the Apple Watch. Watches are an accessory. Apple Watches cannot be worn with every attire. Frankly, I find them ugly and I wouldn't buy them even if I was a millionaire. I'd rather accept a cool-looking analog watch. If you feel that your sister won't like the watch, then get her something else, something she doesn't have. Or some other accessory like a bracelet or pendant something. I'm just naming stuff because it's what she likes. Commenter 5. Things aside, where do you get such cousins? And yes, gift the watch which you have gotten. Reply. Bro, my family is quite close-knitted, which is generally not in the case of Indian family these days, and we share all our problems and resources amongst ourselves. Also that cousin, paternal uncle's son, of mine doesn't have any sister, so he kind of looks for a sister in my sister. I have no problem with that. She is also his sister. Update. Hey guys, I just wanted to give you all an update, and honestly, what a wholesome experience this turned out to be. After reading your encouraging advice, I decided to go ahead and give my sister the watch I bought for her. In the evening, I finally handed her the gift, and you know what? She smiled, got excited, and immediately hugged me. Later, I told her about the dilemma I had, how I was unsure about giving it to her since our cousin had already gifted her an Apple Watch. As soon as I said that, she got in teary eyes, and she hugged me again, this time even warmer hug. She told me something I'll never forget, the bond we share, the love, and all our memories, that's what matters most. This watch is special because it's from you, and I'll cherish it forever. She said she would wear the Titan watch on various occasions as it would suit her style and will tell everyone that her brother gifted her the watch with love. Man, I almost teared up myself. We ended the evening by watching anime together while devouring some spicy Korean noodles, the perfect way to close out such a memorable day. I'm so glad I listened to you guys, you were 100% right. It was never just about the gift, it was about the love and meaning behind it. I was totally overthinking, and now I have this amazing memory I'll carry with me forever. Thank you all so much for the kind words and advice. Y'all are the best. Red heart loudly crying face. Comments. Commenter 1. I.e. this is so wholesome and cutty. Growing heart ribbon. Commenter 2. Cherish your bonds. Commenter 3. Since when are siblings this nice to each other? Commenter 4. When they grow up it happens. Reply. You just have to take few steps and in return you will get the same amount of energy back. Most don't do this. Sibling bond matter a lot, especially in adulthood. Stories number 14. My Christian parents still think I live in sin with my boyfriend. We married 13 years ago. English is my second language, excuse spelling errors. I am not close with my parents but we talk. My mental health is better as long as I keep them on a distance. Before I 49F met my boyfriend husband, let's call him Sam 50M, my parents told me that they would never accept me choosing a partner who smoked, was not Christian, didn't have an education, etc. Then I met Sam. He had just returned from backpacking the world for years. He had no education, smoked 2 Lucky Strikes a day, smoked weed, had piercings, didn't want a steady job, didn't own anything, and not only was he not a Christian, he thinks that religion is the cause of much evil and is actively against all forms of religion. He was exactly what I needed. He moved into the flat I shared with 3 others. We had 1 bedroom each and shared kitchen, living room and bathroom. We were 25 to 26. After 5 months we started having sex, FWB. After a year of being FWB we realized we had feelings for each other. My parents started sending me letters, talking about choosing the narrow path and not be tempted and go to hell. We moved to a smaller flat with just me and Sam. We committed to each other. Sam got a steady job. And sometimes he worked 3 jobs and made as much as I did in my better paying job, because he worked so much. We bought a flat together. I realized more and more that he wasn't just good in bed and a good friend, he was a really great guy. He is the one you want in your corner when things are not so great and you really need someone you can trust. I was, and still am, head over heels in love with him. His family was the opposite of mine. All atheists and not very close. I had felt suffocated by my family in my teens and early 20s. He had been more or less abandoned by his parents when he was 16. His parents divorced and both moved in with new partners, not wanting him to come along. He was allowed to stay in the flat he grew up in, alone, getting some money for food and his father checking up on him once a week. As soon as he turned 18 he was on his own, the old flat sold. Sam raised himself, decided his own morals and values, and what was important to him. And he is just such a great, empathetic, caring guy. I was always told, growing up, that non-Christians had bad morals, and that clearly isn't true. So 13 years ago we married quietly and didn't tell anyone. None of our parents know. Our parents still haven't met, and I always plan to keep it that way. It's too much of a cultural divide. Although we are from the same country, all are white and middle class. My parents ignore Sam most of the time. They invite me to come and stay over Christmas, and I say, no, I'm not leaving Sam alone over Christmas, we want to celebrate together. And that makes them immediately drop it, because they can't have us sleep in the same bed in their house. Although we have lived together for 23 years, and because I have a bit of childhood trauma and bad memories in that house, I never want to stay over there anyway. So, win-win. I will never tell my parents I'm married. Stories number 15. Aita for telling my mother to stop telling people the story behind my name. I, 15M, and my mother, 39F, have similar names due to my mother naming me after her. I don't dislike my name at all. But the story behind it and how my mother constantly wants to tell it to the world is the problem. For backstory, I am her second child, and for her first child, my older brother, 20M, she wanted to know his gender, and she found out and named him. For me, however, she decided to keep it a surprise. However, she for some reason was confident that I would be female and was dead set on naming me after her. Her name is Alexandra, so she would have named me Alexandra as well, fake names. When I came out male, she simply named me Alexander, fake name. However, she would constantly tell everyone she befriended, if we were together, the story on how I was named. It embarrasses me to no end, and I've told her over and over to please not tell that to every new friend her or I make. She even told all of my friends' parents the story despite me asking her to not tell them. She wants to meet my friends' parents for the first time if I want to sleep over for whatever reason. This all boiled down to Thursday when my mother and I went to the grocery store, and as we were leaving, a duo of charity workers came up to us to ask us if we were willing to donate to their cause. My mother, being the social butterfly she, sparked up a conversation with them. As the two introduced themselves to us, my mother followed suit and, of course, told them the story I dreaded she would. My name is Alexandra and this is my son Alexander. He was supposed to be a girl and take my name. But he came out a boy, so I named him after me. I got a bit angry and told her, I really wish you wouldn't tell every stranger you meet on the street that. It makes me feel embarrassed and mad. It got silent and my mother's face twisted and just told the charity workers that she'll donate next time and started walking to the car. The car ride home was silent, and when we got home she told me that I really embarrassed her back at the store and that I should have told her something after we got in the car that I didn't like her telling that story. I've said to her that I've told her repeatedly that I don't like her telling everyone with a pulse that she befriends that story, and that I got fed up with her blatantly ignoring me and my request to stop. She just told me to go to my room and to not come out. She of course told everyone in my family what I did, and my stepdad and grandparents said I shouldn't have embarrassed her like that and to apologize to her. My brother and best friend told me I was right to call her out since I've told her many times to stop embarrassing me with that story and that she needed to learn what I felt. I do feel bad and want to apologize and talk to her, but at the same time I still feel like I'm right and that she needed to feel what I feel. So Aita. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA because I think if a parent is repeatedly doing something that upsets their child they should endeavor to stop doing it unless it's a safety issue. So definitely NTA. I am curious though which part of this is embarrassing. Is it your mom being friendly and chatting to strangers? Is it being named after your mother? Is it because she got your gender wrong when she was pregnant? I think it's pretty cringeworthy when people name their children after themselves, but apart from that this feels like pretty common parent behavior. Most adults with teenage children are confident enough in themselves to chat to people and make small talk, which is what this is. It's not embarrassing or significant for either party. Most teenagers aren't as comfortable with small talk, either making or receiving, and find themselves being embarrassed by their parents making it. That feels like part of what's going on here. As for wanting to meet the parents of your friends, that's normal and expected and good parenting. They're responsible for you and need to do their best to ensure the adults whose home you're visiting are as safe as possible. I'd do the same and my parents did the same, as did the parents of my friends at your age. Particularly if sleeping over. Reply, what I find embarrassing is just her needing to tell that story to people when she introduces us. I don't mind being named after her at all. As for her meeting my friend's parents, I didn't even think about her just wanting to make sure they were responsible. Makes sense now that you say it like that. Commenter 2, question, why does it embarrass you, other than because you're 15? 15-year-old you will get embarrassed about stuff and 25-year-old you will have zero idea why. Lots of hormonal angst can be avoided if you can tell the difference. Reply, it's not that I find my name or the story embarrassing, it's just her strange need to tell people the story when she introduces us. Even if I've told her many times to stop. Update Aita for telling my mother to stop telling people the story behind my name. So a bit of an late update for you, sorry. I want to say thanks for the advice and the support. It means a lot and I do mean that. I do want to say that please don't make this an whole picture of my mother's and I relationship. She loves me and I love her and we get along very well, she has her flaws just as everyone does. Anyway, the update. So on that Thursday, later in the afternoon. My mother and stepdad came into my room when my best friend and I were playing Lego Fortnite, split screen FTW. My stepdad first apologized for being upset with me and told me that my mother told him that I yelled at her but she later told him that I didn't and that he agreed that the story was embarrassing. My mother apologized too but asked me if us being named similarly was embarrassing to me. I told her that I like my name and I don't mind being named similarly but that she didn't need to tell people this all the time. Thinking back on some comments, I told her that she could just simply introduce us as Alexandra and my son Alexander and people could just connect the dots. She seemed to like this idea and promised me that she would do that from now on. She said that she told this story to people because she was so proud of the young man I am and just wanted to show off our connection. I told her that it was fine to be proud but in a different way. She agreed. She told me as an apology, she would make pizza in our pizza oven we have outside with whatever toppings I like. It's my best friend and I favorite food with our favorite toppings, mushrooms and peppers. She was excited but then again she practically lives here so she eats it plenty LMAO. I agreed. Not an exciting upgrade but a hopeful one nonetheless. Thank you again for all the support even the ones who said I was YTA. I did read all of them. Stories number 16. Finally found out why my friends don't want me going on my date tonight. Pretty annoyed. For context I'm 35M, and my date is 43F. We actually met because she's in a hobby group with my mom and she encouraged us to go out together. Two of my friends and their girlfriends didn't approve when they found out. At first it was because she was a few years older than me and because she's a friend of my mom's, but after pointing out that at our age 8 years is not a big gap and my mom was supportive they just called it weird and creepy to date her. Eventually after everyone else I asked seemed confused about the problem like I was they came clean and admitted they had been talking to my ex that left me a year ago and she had been missing me. My ex is friends with the two disapproving girlfriends and they all have been planning to try and get us back together like some kind of trashy romance plot. My ex left me after we were together for a year because she just didn't feel right about our relationship. Hurt like hell at the time, but I've moved on. I've run into her a few times and been polite, but I have no interest in a relationship or even a friendship with her. She's not part of my life anymore and I'm keeping it that way. My friends made me feel like I was crazy and weird for wanting to go on a date with a woman I get along with. We've hung out a lot in other settings just not a date yet, all so they could try and force my ex back into my life. Ex texted me this morning asking if we could meet up and talk and I told her that I wasn't interested in anything she'd have to say and that I'd like to keep my distance from her. I'm also putting some distance between my two friends who were playing along with their girlfriend's stupid game. On the plus side, I'm really looking forward to our date tonight. Dinner, drinks, and a walk through town to enjoy the nice weather we're getting. Update, just got home. Did not expect this much support. Figured I'd let anyone finding this late or checking back in know. Date went very well. Haven't had a first date go that well I think ever tbh. Second date has already been planned. I'll be cooking dinner and we'll be watching a few terrible movies we both share a love for. As for my crappy ex-friends, I've already told them we're done being friends. Luckily they are part of a separate social circle from my main group of friends, so it's a very easy breakup process there. Ex tried calling me. Went ahead and blocked her everywhere I could think of. Not letting those idiots ruin an otherwise amazing night. Thanks again for everyone's supportive words. I know I made the right call, but it's nice to be validated, you know. Update 2, wow, this got a lot more attention than it deserved. Came back to hundreds of messages. People wanted to know about date 2. It went just as well as the first date, I'd say. I made chicken parm and she got me my favorite cider to drink. We watched Velocipaster because that movie is truly art at its finest. She's an incredible woman and now we're official, so I get to brag about my awesome girlfriend to anyone who will listen. She's confident, smart, funny, gorgeous, and she knows what she wants. She's very straightforward, which I appreciate. Obviously it is way too early to tell what the future of this relationship looks like, but for now I'm happier than I've been in a very long time. Also, my mom is being smug as hell and teasing me relentlessly, but my GF is getting it even worse because mom and the girls from the hobby club are all ganging up on her. It's all in good fun. I just think they haven't had much new relationship gossip in a while. Her friends, and my 2 ex-friends seem to have accepted the breakup, and I don't expect them to show up knocking on my door demanding we hang out or anything like a few people suspected. With those friends out of my life, I'm no longer likely to even run into my ex, as I only ever saw her when hanging out with those particular friends. Might see her at the store, but even that's unlikely because I go at odd hours to do my shopping. That's it. No big fun drama. I'm happy, GF is happy, family and friends are happy. Life is good. Thank you for listening to me yap about my love life on the tail end of a post I wrote just to work off some steam. Stories number 17. To fool by eating a pancake that went bad in my car and discovering I had cancer. Obligatory, this happened back in June of last year. So, yeah. Title pretty much sums it up. I live in Texas and it was a hot summer day, and like the absolute genius I am, I left 2 pancakes in my car. It must have been there from 10 a.m. to about 6 p.m. as I was doing quite a bit of errands and shopping, long enough that it basically slow-cooked itself in the sweltering heat. Now, instead of throwing it away like a normal person, my dumbass thought, hey, this is fine, right? I ate one of the pancakes when I got home and put the other in the fridge. Next morning I felt a little off, but hey, it is what it is. I pulled the leftover pancake from the fridge, took a bite and realized it tasted a little funny. I chalked it up to bad fridge taste. I went out with family to a buffet and felt kinda off, a little confused and not very hungry. I drank a lot of Sprite and ate some shrimp but felt like I got hit by a truck. A few hours later, right before bed, my body was like, we're gonna make you regret every decision you've ever made. I got hit with the worst fever, chills, and pain imaginable. You know when you feel so bloated you know you need to throw up to feel better. I struggled to get comfortable in bed and it hit me, I need to throw up like right now. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up a pink sludge. Perfect. I thought I could just go back to bed at this point, but NOPE. I must have thrown up at least 8 times. My throat was absolutely raw at this point. It was 2 in the morning. I had work in a few hours, but I had this feeling where I just felt like I was dreaming and I was pretty confused. I let my family know, hey, I think I need to go to urgent care. Turns out, I had severe sepsis. Ended up being moved to the hospital where they kept me for a week hooked up to 4 antibiotics, feeling like death itself. While they were running a bunch of tests and scans, the doctors were like, hey, you've got cysts on both ovaries. Might want to check that out. But wait, there's more. During the scans, they also found a weird lytic bone lesion on my hip and femur. More tests, more scans, and surprise, I had multiple myeloma. And those ovarian cysts. Long story short, surgery happened this past week, and I lost both my ovaries. Turns out, those cysts weren't just cysts. They were teratomas, aka creepy tumor babies that had HAIR sizes of lemons. Both of them. So, to recap, my incredibly dumb decision to eat a sun-baked pancake somehow led to finding out I had 2 ovarian monsters and cancer. If I hadn't gotten sepsis and ended up in the hospital, I wouldn't have known until way later, and things could have been much worse. So, in the most messed up way possible, that stupid pancake might have actually saved my life. TLDR, ate a pancake that slow cooked in my car, got severe sepsis, lost both ovaries to teratomas, and accidentally discovered I had bone marrow cancer. Stories number 18. Aita for not allowing my sister-in-law stay in my empty and furnished condo while she's in town. When I, 36F, and my husband, 37M, got married 3 years ago, we decided I would move into his house and keep my condo. While we were dating, we spent time equally between both places. My unit was closer to downtown and attractions in our city, and his house was farther away from everything but much larger and in a quiet neighborhood. Since my place was nearly paid off and the mortgage is very inexpensive, I bought right out of college before the area was as nice as it is now. We decided it would make sense to use it for out-of-town guests, parties, or when we were too tired to drive home after a night out. Last month, his sister, 28, asked if she and her girlfriend could come for 4th of July weekend and stay at the condo. We agreed. She would drive in from their hometown that Thursday and stay until Monday. Last week, she slipped up and mentioned that she would be having a pride event at my place. At first she tried to backtrack and say she would be attending one, then admitted that she was planning on using my place to throw the party for about 20 people from a Facebook group. I told her absolutely not and that she and her girlfriend could stay but no party. We're still in a pandemic and I don't care if things are opening. My home is not. She called me a hypocrite since my husband and I use it for parties. He and I still refused, so she threw a tantrum and called us homophobes, cancelled the event, and made a post on FB about us insinuating, but not staring directly, that we reneged because it was a pride event, which isn't remotely true. My MIL called to find out what was happening and apparently, my SIL is keeping up the story that we were being homophobic. I called her and told her to find somewhere else to stay, so of course she got even more irate and made more insulting posts on FB about us, saying that she's basically homeless for the weekend and that it's not safe for them to stay at a hotel. I'm not budging, but my husband is trying to keep the peace and saying we should still let her stay. SIL and I usually have a very great relationship, so I'm not sure why she's acting so ugly about it. AITA for reneging on allowing her to stay in my empty condo. Verdict, not the asshole. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA, she literally admitted it's unsafe to be at a hotel RN due to the pandemic, but she's willing to sacrifice the safety of 20 people, and you as the owner of the place, so she can throw a party. Make it make sense. Commenter 2. Honestly, even if there wasn't a pandemic going on, how rude of her to assume she can throw a party in someone else's house without asking them. Commenter 3. Her comment about them having parties was a diversion because, I'm assuming, the OP hasn't had any parties since the virus started. She's TA because she's using homophobia as an excuse when it couldn't be farther from the truth. I hope OP clarifies in these posts. Reply, just saw this. No parties since COVID. Last time we were there was February. Commenter 4. That what I figured, so she definitely TA trying to use that as an excuse. Selfish and self-centered. Commenter 3. NTA. Don't let her stay in the condo ever. Accusing you of being homophobic because you are not allowing her to have a party during a pandemic is disgusting. This kind of accusation can have big repercussions and she is being absolutely selfish in doing so. Reply, I don't want to cancel her completely. I'm sure she was acting out in anger, so I don't want to make a permanent decision out of anger as well. We decided to call her tonight on Zoom so we can talk face to face. Commenter 4. NTA. And frankly SIL is. There is no way me and my girlfriend can automatically extend to having a party, any party, in your condo. And she only has to be homeless on 4th of July weekend because she falsely called you homophobic. I see how your husband may feel trapped in the middle, so just make this a you thing and not an us thing. Dig in your heels. Eventually SIL may learn you're a reasonable person, or maybe SIL is going to turn out to be someone who uses people a lot. Reply, I think this is driving my crazy because she isn't normally like this. She's a sweet girl and I've known her since she was a teen. She's not normally a user, so maybe I'm trying to figure out what made her lash out like this. It came out of nowhere. Commenter 5. Well, maybe her GF put her up to the party idea. Then once it was announced on social media and she had to cancel the plan, it embarrassed her in front of her friends. Reply, I hadn't really thought of it like that. I was more focused on being angry at her calling us homophobic than thinking about why she was being crazy. Edit, she accepted the calendar invitation for us to talk, so I'll update later. She sent my husband a text that said talk to you soon. Didn't send me anything but accepted my invite, so hopefully it goes well. Updated next day. Update, it was a very long Zoom with me, my husband, SIL and her girlfriend, but I think we're all on the same page. I decided to let her talk first and apparently, she took me saying, I don't want those people in my house to mean something way different than what I intended. She claims she wasn't blowing it out of proportion but she also says she knew I didn't mean it in any other way and she let anger get the best of her. She says she doesn't know why she doubled down once she calmed down but I suspect the GF egged her on as she spent most of the call silent. SIL was very apologetic about being childish and insisted the homophobic comments were in general and not directly about me. She claims she was having issues with other people as well, but she did apologize for the FB posts and has since deleted them. As far as the party is concerned, the GF made the plans and SIL just went with them. It went from being a couple of people for dinner to something bigger and they were both trying to save face not realizing caring how it made my husband and I look. She says she understands the invite being revoked and hoped I would forgive her. I apologized for using the words, those people, because I do understand that it can be offensive. She and her girlfriend decided that they would still be coming in next week and that they would shorten the trip and pay for a hotel or Airbnb. I'm not sure if they still plan on getting together with their FB friends but I did add my 2 cents and told her it was a dumb idea. She laughed it off but something tells me they're planning on hanging out. We changed the subject immediately after the tears and apologies. I'm glad we spoke. I'm still not completely okay but I feel much better about sticking to my decision even after she cancelled the party. Stories number 19. Aita for refusing to let my mother-in-law hold my baby after she told my husband to get a paternity test. I removed the post by mistake. The story 1, I, 28F, gave birth to my first child, a beautiful baby girl, 3 weeks ago. My husband, 30M, and I have been over the moon, but his mother has been causing non-stop drama. She never liked me. From the start, she made snide comments about how I trapped her son, even though we've been happily married for 4 years. When I got pregnant, she constantly joked about how the baby might not be his. I brushed it off as her usual passive-aggressive behavior, until I found out she took it way further. 2 days after I gave birth, my husband got a text from his mom saying, you should get a DNA test. You never know these days. I was devastated when I saw it. My husband was furious and told her off, saying he had zero doubts about me and that her comment was disgusting. She tried to backtrack, saying she was just looking out for him. Now she wants to come over and meet the baby. But I told my husband that she will not be holding our daughter. If she wants to question whether my child is even her grandchild, then she doesn't get the privilege of bonding with her. My husband understands why I'm upset, but he thinks we should let her come, just once, so she doesn't play the victim with the rest of the family. Now she's crying to everyone, saying I'm keeping her granddaughter from her, and that I'm punishing her over a harmless question. Some family members think I'm being dramatic and should be the bigger person. But why should I let someone who disrespected me and my child hold her like nothing happened? Aita for refusing to let her hold my baby. Update. Well, I wish I could say things got better, but MIL made sure that didn't happen. After my husband told her off, I thought she'd at least try to apologize, but instead, she doubled down. She started calling my husband, telling him I was turning him against his own mother, and that I was overreacting to a simple question. She even pulled the classic victim act, crying to the rest of the family about how I was keeping her grandbaby from her. Then, things took a ridiculous turn. I found out from ISIL that MIL was actually trying to get a DNA test done behind our backs. Apparently, she was hoping to get a strand of my baby's hair or some spit to confirm the truth. When MISIL told me, I was absolutely done. I told my husband that until she apologizes, not a fake, I'm sorry you're mad, apology, but a real one, she is not welcome around me or my daughter. Thankfully, my husband backed me up 100%. He told his mother that if she can't respect his wife and child, then she doesn't deserve to be part of our lives. MIL lost it. She went full drama mode, telling everyone I was tearing the family apart and that she might never recover from this heartbreak. At this point, I don't even care. She disrespected me, she disrespected my marriage, and she disrespected my child. Actions have consequences. So yeah, MIL still hasn't met the baby. And unless she does some serious apologizing and self-reflection, she won't be anytime soon. Stories number 20. My 27M girlfriend, 28F, told me she would not cheat on me after coming home from a girls' night out. Hi everyone. Last weekend I picked my girlfriend up from a bar after she had a girls' night. When we got back to the apartment, I carried her up the stairs as in her words, a princess should not have to walk. As I carried her, she said, I would never cheat on you, you are too good for that, and gave me a kiss. I didn't think much of it at the time because she definitely drank a lot that night, but I have been having trouble getting that out of my head. How do I decipher that statement? I mean, there are a few cases that I can think of. Someone pressured her to cheat. One of her friends cheated on their partners. This is complicated because I have become friends with her friends' partners. She was just being drunk and not thinking. I have been cheated on before and I have expressed to my girlfriend that cheating is the ultimate no-no for me and would cause an instant breakup, so she knows it's a touchy topic. I just wanted some advice before I make a big deal of this because I tend to overthink things. Update. A few people asked for an update, so here it is. Also thanks for all the advice. I talked to my girlfriend and there is good news and bad news. Good news, my girlfriend didn't cheat. When I asked her about her comment, she had absolutely no memory of saying it, lol. Bad news, when I asked why she would say something like that, she admitted that one of the girls she was out with, Jane, made out with a guy that was not her boyfriend, John. She said that the comment probably came from the fact that the guy Jane was smashing tongues with had a few friends that were hitting on her friend group, but lost interest after there were no takers. Needless to say, I voiced my concern with the fact that she had told me none of this and she agreed that it was shitty and even looked suspicious. She told me she was looking for a chance to tell me, but I broached the subject first and that she is going to take it easy when it comes to drinking when I am not with her, for my reassurance and for her hangover lol. Also, one of her friends got promoted, which is why they were going hard that night. This is not a common occurrence for them. Now for Jane and John. My girlfriend said that Jane had been texting in a group chat saying that John was acting cold at the start of the week and went radio silence after that. I called up John to double check that he knew as well as ask if he wanted to get a beer sometime. He agreed and told me that Jane and he had officially broken up and she was a mess, constantly texting and calling him. I also asked him for Jane's side of the story, so I can match it with what my GF told me. I'm a bit paranoid, I know. The stories matched up. She had been drinking, a guy came up to her, they flirted, she made a mistake. As far as Jane, my GF and her friends, I am assuming that one of her friends told John. I forgot to ask John, but he is a good guy and has become good friends with my GF's friend group. As of now, Jane hasn't reached out to my GF or her friends. Definitely not the best ending, but it worked out alright for me. Stories number 21. Aita for being willing to divorce my wife because she's become friends with the brother who bullied me my whole life. I, 32M, have a complicated relationship with my brother Dean, 33M. He's the only sibling I have and most people assume we should be close, but he bullied me for most of our lives. I gave him some chances over the years but he never grew or stopped. There were people in my life who brushed it off as teasing and siblings getting under each other's skin. He'd make fun of me for not being athletic like him and he'd call me a loser for it. He'd say I looked like a fat, I was really skinny as a kid actually, kid running and how fun it would be to trip me up. He'd start laughing at me if I did anything like exercise and our parents had cameras and he'd try to take pictures of me and say he'd spread them around school. I had some stomach issues as a kid and he'd tell his friends I crapped my pants a lot and then spread it around school. There were a few occasions during school where he'd loudly ask me why I was sitting in my crapped-in pants and why I didn't have pull-ups or something. If I ever had friends over as a teenager, Dean would bring up how I used to crap my pants a lot and try to humiliate me with other embarrassing stories. He did the same thing when I brought home my first girlfriend in college. For a few years he'd taunt me and say he slept with my ex that time I brought her home. He'd say I'd die a virgin and no girl could actually have sex with me because I was too weird and too much of a fucking nerd. I wouldn't go home because of this stuff and I told my parents I wasn't going to let him treat me like that. I see now that they never did their best by me either and let Dean get away with a lot. They never took sides, but that meant saying nothing while he'd treat me like shit and try to humiliate me. Sometimes they'd tell me he was maturing and stuff and I tried but he didn't mature. Still hasn't. And I gave him another chance recently. That brings me to my wife. We've been together for 6 years, married 4 and we have 2 kids together. She knows my history with Dean and told me I deserved better. But then she met Dean at my parents' house, sat through him doing the same shit which made me insist we leave early and then she started talking to him online and became actual friends with him. They text and make plans and I'm so hurt by that. She told me I don't get to police her relationships and how she thinks it's good for them to connect because he has kids with his wife and we have 2 and the kids deserve to know each other. She also told me they have stuff in common and make good friends. I told her given how he treats me I would have expected her to stay as far from him as she can and I said it hurts that she's become friends with him. She said when she met him it was just different and he's an ass to me but not a bad guy overall. I told her I didn't like it and we needed therapy together to talk through all of this because our marriage couldn't survive if she insists on staying friends with him. She asked if I'd really consider divorcing her over her friendship with my brother and I said yes. I told her she's stabbing me in the back with that choice. She told me I was crazy and controlling and she told her family who think I'm selfish for even considering tearing my family apart over this. My own friends and two of my cousins who know the score and agree my brother is a huge ass to me think my wife is wrong and that it's understandable if I can't stay with her because of this. But I know this is a huge thing and will hurt my kids. I also know I've questioned whether my wife and Dean are having an affair. I have read some of those messages and they don't seem flirty and most of their plans are online, but even if it's just a friendship it does feel like betrayal to me. AITA for considering divorce over this? Stories number 22. AITA for calling out my husband's friend after he made inappropriate comments about my son's paternity. I, 23F, have been married to my husband, Alex, 27M, for 2 years, and we have a 10-month-old son, Dylan. Alex has a friend named Mike, 27M. They've been best friends since high school. From my first encounter, I did not like Mike. He is really childish, likes to be the center of attention, and has a crude sense of humor. It's like he never got out of his frat boy phase. All of my husband's friends are married or in long-term relationships, whereas Mike has never been in a long-term relationship or has brought any woman around. He has also made some weird comments toward me that made me uncomfortable. My husband has a deep bond with Mike, and they often go on hunting trips or have boys' nights. I've never tried to keep my husband from hanging out with his friend, but I have limited my contact with Mike as much as possible since we've been together. Mike came over to pick up my husband to go golfing. I was holding our baby when I answered the door. Mike greeted us at the door, asked to hold my baby, and was cooing at him. Then he said, "Hey there, man, come to Papa," and my husband and Mike started laughing. A bit of background: I have brown hair and blue eyes, and my husband has black hair and brown eyes. Our son's hair is coming in blonde, and he has blue eyes. Mike has blondish hair and blue eyes. I was a bit caught off guard by it but ignored his comment. Mike then said, "He looks like me. Maybe he's mine," and my husband and Mike continued to laugh. I was obviously not amused. I told Mike to hand me my son and then told him, "Not in a million years, and no woman with sense would want you." Neither my husband nor Mike laughed at my comment, and Mike just made a face before he and my husband left. Later, my husband told me I took it too far with Mike, that Mike was just joking, but I made it personal. I told him those comments were disrespectful to me as his wife and the mother of this child. He then said it's obviously not true, so why am I so upset when I know how Mike is? Stories number 23. 2 years sober until I found a legal drug substitute. I've told a few people some of my drug history, but have never admitted to anyone the full abuse. My whole life I've had a problem with addiction. It didn't kick in until I was 16 and had my first cigarette, shortly after I was drinking coffee every day. I still do these two things, but do they really count? I tell myself that, while nicotine and caffeine are probably the most addictive drugs used in the world. Anyway, around 17 I started smoking weed. A year later at 18 I was taking pills from my friend's parents. I was stealing Adderall and Vyvanse. About a month later I was consuming 70 milligrams of Vyvanse and 30 milligrams of Adderall a day. I went from weighing 135 pounds to 94 pounds at my worst. Eventually I started hearing voices in my head and had drug-induced schizophrenia. How did I kick this? The few people I told I said it was from pure mental strength when in reality my source ran out and I couldn't find any more. That was my first big drug addiction. Soon after high school I was on my way to college. At this time I was just into smoking weed. College I started doing a plethora of drugs. Painkillers, uppers, downers, you name it I was doing it. My friends and I eventually rented our own place to do drugs in peace. We really got into psychedelics at one point. That fucked me up for a while. At around 4 a.m., I woke up to someone ringing our doorbell. This woke up my son, and he was scared and crying. My husband and I woke up irritated. I look at our camera, and James was outside ringing our doorbell. When I opened the door, James was fuming. He was mad that I had locked him out of the house when I said I would be there to let him in. I asked him why he ignored my texts as I told him where the spare keys were, and he said his phone died and I should have just given him the keys before he left. James was getting very loud, so I told him that either he had to calm down and go to sleep, or he had to find somewhere else to sleep. James went to our guest room, grabbed his things, and slept in his car. Earlier this week, I was talking to my sister about the situation and she called me the because I told James that I would wait up for him, and that I made a drunk person sleep in their car. I feel justified, but James is also still not talking to me. So Reddit, Aita, edit. The reason I didn't give him the spare key right away was honestly, I didn't think about it. The original plan was for him to go out to eat with his friends and then come back to watch some movies with us and have a night in. When he texted me to see when a respectful time would be to come back at, I figured respectful would have meant by like midnight. But I guess I didn't communicate that with him either. Stories number 25. Aita for refusing to have another child after my husband said our daughter isn't his spiritual child. For context, me, 33F, and my husband, Stephen, 40M, have been together for 15 years, married for 12 years. We had our daughter, Peyton, 14F, a year into our relationship. Our relationship has been happy except for a few arguments and some things I noticed recently that have made me consider being with him. When we had our daughter, we were both over the moon. He was an amazing father, and he is an amazing husband. In his free time, he would always want to spend time with Peyton, and he made lots of effort to be as involved as possible. They are definitely very close, or were, because after these events, Peyton has shown disinterest in hanging out with Stephen. A couple of weeks ago, Peyton came to us and told us she was dating a girl. Initially, Stephen and I both were very supportive, and let her know that we loved her no matter what. Last weekend, she went to visit her aunt and uncle, who were staying with my MIL for a week. Aunt and uncle have a child, 12F, who is close with Peyton. MIL is strongly religious. Suddenly, I get a call from MIL demanding that I collect Peyton from her house, and in her words, how dare I allow her near her cousin while she is swerving away from the path of God. Because in my Mill's eyes, apparently Peyton was influencing her cousin to be gay. Let me put it out there that me and my husband have never put any religious beliefs upon our child or let religion dictate the way we raised our child. My husband has told me in the past that he doesn't agree with a lot of the religious beliefs and practices, but he still says he's religious. Peyton was obviously upset and I was fuming. My husband was at work, so I went to collect Peyton from MIL's house. When we got home, I comforted Peyton because she was in floods of tears, saying she doesn't like MIL. She told me that her cousin and her were talking about crushes, and other girl things. Then went on to say that MIL stormed in and started yelling about how Peyton was disrespectful and told her cousin to not go near Peyton because she's contagious. When Stephen came home, he instantly asked Peyton what was wrong, and he comforted her too and apologized for MIL's behavior. Stephen and I discussed how to proceed from here, and eventually decided to cut ties with MIL due to her behavior causing so much stress for Peyton. We both made the decision, and I asked him if he was okay with cutting ties with his mother, to which he replied he was and that he would do anything for Peyton. I thought things would end with MIL here, but it's progressively gotten worse. Stephen has tried several times this week to initiate sex, and I've politely told him no, as Eve not really been in the mood. He got upset when I said no, so in the end I just let him, but he doesn't usually get upset anymore after being told no. As well as this, he has also tried to initiate more than usual this week, and I was confused as to why, because he was being distant with Peyton too. So I asked him about it and he was dismissing my concerns at first, but eventually confessed that he wants another child because he believes Peyton isn't his child spiritually. When I asked him what he meant, he confided that he had been talking to MIL for a couple days and he had come to the realization that God wouldn't gift him a child that would upset his mother, and he wanted to try for another child, even going as far to admit he was thinking about poking holes in condoms or going down on me while I slept to force me into pregnancy. Luckily, he didn't do either of these things, but I snapped at this confession and refused to talk to him for a couple days. He begged me to forgive him and is begging me to rethink, saying that he desperately wants a grandchild to carry on his last name and would do anything to have another child with me. I asked him what Peyton is to him and he said that she's his biological daughter but not his spiritual daughter, and that didn't mean anything to him. I was shocked that my husband, who has shown nothing but love for our daughter, could just say this. Honestly, I'm repulsed by his behavior and I've taken Peyton to stay with my parents while we figure things out. I don't know if this is worth salvaging or if I should continue to be with him after all this. He's never behaved this way about this or agreed with his mother's beliefs openly. I also thought we had come to an agreement, but I guess not. Right now, after speaking to several friends and family members, I realized it might be best if I divorce him, because I can't guarantee my daughter's safety around him. But a part of me feels like I should at least get in contact with him again and try to work things out before throwing away 15 years of a relationship and potentially ruining my daughter's relationships with his family. I feel like I might be TA because I could be dismissing his beliefs and values by refusing to have another child or divorcing him, but his beliefs are affecting our daughter and I can't ignore that. I also could be ruining our daughter's relationships if I divorce him and cut ties with his family, but including his family in our lives could affect my daughter's mental health. TLDR, husband wants another child after feeling not spiritually related to our teenage daughter, who is dating a girl, after MIL banned her from her house for religious reasons. I'm thinking of divorcing him, but I don't want to dismiss his religious values or put my daughter in a bad place. Edit, I am going to divorce him. Edit 2, to clear something up, some of the things stated was from what he said to me. When I said he was thinking of going down on me while I slept, it was his wording. I am aware that this does not impregnate someone, but then he went on to say that he believed I would wake up and be in the mood. My apologies, I should have included that in the post but I didn't really think it'd be of much relevance. Stories number 26. Aita for telling my son-in-law he can't park a Tesla here. So my husband and I are both federal employees. For now. We both work 60+ hours a week. I'm not currently happy with the political climate for obvious reasons but we are dealing with it. My daughter has been dating a young man for going on 5 years. They are both in their early 20s and going to college. Because his parents are not the most supportive and they seem serious about each other, I've let him live in my house the last couple of years for free while he's going to college. I want them to have the best start to life they can. He works part-time. He pays for most of his essentials. He's welcome to eat any groceries I buy and even can request stuff and I'll get it. And when I buy food he's always included. Outside that he's mostly self-sufficient. My daughter recently mentioned he's been interested in buying a used Tesla from a friend. I'm okay with most cars but with current climate and being a federal employee this made me immediately say absolutely not. I don't mean he can't buy it but I don't want to see it in my driveway daily. So I said if he does. He just can't park it here. My daughter thinks I'm overreacting but I just don't want to see a Tesla in my driveway while I pull out to drive to a job that the Tesla owner is threatening and insulting on a daily basis. It feels like a double insult. Aita for this. Edit. He has a car that is paid for and has no issues that he currently uses. He has no need for a new car except he thinks the self-driving feature is cool. Which I understand. His parents live a few blocks away. If he wants to buy it he's welcome to park it there. I wouldn't kick him out. I just don't want it here daily. Stories number 27. Aita for telling my brother to stop crying to me because he ignored the red flags and my warnings and start figuring out what's best for his kids. My brother met his wife 6.5 years ago. She was semi-recently divorced with 2 daughters, 8 and 6 at the time. She was honest about the fact she wanted more kids and it was the reason behind her divorce. It was also clear while my brother was dating her that her daughters knew the reason and resented her and him for it. He told me she wanted a large family of 6 or more kids. I told him that there were a lot of red flags and what about the daughters she already had. I asked him if he thought they'd accept half-siblings born to them when it was clear they see the situation as they weren't good enough or just plain enough for their mom and she blew up the family to have more kids. He told me kids come around in time and if they had kids quickly the age gap would be small enough for a good relationship to form. I told him he should really consider whether this was the makings of a happy family or of a fractured one. He told me I was being overly negative. Right now my brother has a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old with his wife. And her daughters do not claim any of them as siblings. The best they can offer is completely ignoring their half-siblings but that doesn't happen as much as them getting mad at their younger half-siblings. It's clear they resent them for being born, they hate my brother and speak to him like he's trash they found on the bottom of their shoes. Their relationship with their mom seems to be more fights than anything else. I had a front row seat to several fights between them and have heard the comments the girls make about the younger kids. Now my brother has tried crying to me about it because his oldest is sad that the girls ignore her. She doesn't understand and she wants to sit with her older sisters and watch TV with them or play dolls but either they ignore her or they yell at her and tell her she's not their sister. The 3 kids have witnessed fights between their mom and older sisters. They've heard their older sisters say incredibly angry and hurtful things and the oldest is able to repeat stuff more. It upsets my brother. He doesn't understand how the girls can reject the kids so easily and how they truly don't seem to have any sibling or familial affection for them. He told me he hates it, it makes him depressed and he's not sure what's going to happen and he feels this and that. His focus was on him and I wasn't here for it. I told him to stop crying to me when I was the person who warned him about this, who pointed out the red flags and he ignored it. I told him instead he needs to get his shit together and figure out what's best for his kids and how he can do the best by his kids now that he has helped to create this clusterfuck. Stories number 28. My boyfriend hit me for the first time. What do I do? Me and my boyfriend have been together for 4 years. Since 12 years old. I'm now 16 and he is 18. He's very aggressive, not to mention he is a bodybuilder and has gotten into pretty bad fights, like 1v6, and he has beaten up all 6 of them. He's quite crazy in his head which he has mentioned. What are you doing with a guy like me? I'm literally crazy in the head. A guy pissed him off and he went house to find him and beat the shit out of him. I know he would do anything for me as in the past I've had some pretty serious problems with my father and he was not afraid to stand up to him. My boyfriend is loyal and he has never done anything considered cheating. In the past he has lied about some things and that was the reason why we got into an argument this night. I thought he was lying to me again and accused him of lying, even though I found out later he wasn't. We were arguing the whole night from about 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. I kept accusing him of cheating and lying. He got so mad he started shaking because he kept telling me it's not true and that he loves me, but I kept saying I don't believe him, and then he grabbed me by the neck, chopped me and grabbed me by my hair and hit my head from the wall 2 times. 10 seconds after he realized what he had done, he started crying and kept saying sorry. He got on his knee, begged me not to go home. We talked and he says he did it uncontrollably and that he would never do it again. He has just told me he wants to get professional help after this because he wants to fix the anger so it doesn't happen again. He is the only guy I've loved truly and I can't leave him. He is the only person I felt safe with, and knowing he did that is breaking my heart. I can't leave him, so I'm thinking about giving him a second change to see if it gets better. Please give your advices on what I should do. Edit. I just came back home from talking with him and he seems to be very sorry for what happened. He has offered to go to therapy and see if it has any effect. I started going to therapy a few months ago, mostly for family problems, and it seems to be better at home. I know he is a good person with big issues, so I'm willing to give him a chance to fix that so we can continue happily. If something like this happens again, I'm taking it straight to the police and getting a restraining order from him. Stories number 29. Aita for calling my half-brother a bastard. My 16F mother died 2 years ago. We'd always been very close, so as you can imagine this devastated me. Around 6 months later, my father, 47M, suddenly got married to S, 31F, after he got her pregnant. She very quickly moved into our house and Dad told me to treat her like she was my own mother. Needless to say, I wasn't thrilled, but to make it even worse, S has quite an authoritative personality. She thinks she can give me orders and expects me to obey, which has led to more than a few arguments between us. Things only got worse after my half-brother, 1M, was born. I don't love him. I view him as the constant reminder of my dad's betrayal to my mom. But he keeps pushing me to spend more time with S and her son, when I just want to avoid them as much as possible and pretend they're not here. Yesterday, Dad and S asked me to babysit my half-brother so they can go out on a date night, as they haven't had one since the baby was born. I said no, that it's his bastard son and therefore his problem. He was pissed and said that I can't call my brother a bastard. I told him that he and S were not married when they made him, so calling him a bastard is not an insult, it's the proper description. He angrily sent me to my room, and S called me a jealous little bitch. Now they're both pissed at me because they weren't able to go on their date night, and expect an apology for the inconvenience I caused them. To be honest, I don't think I should apologize. But just to make sure, I want to ask, Aita. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect my post to blow up so much. The overall verdict seems to be ESH, which means that both parties are to blame. Okay, I can live with that. Unfortunately, I can't answer every single comment, but I can try to answer some of the most common concerns. To those who experienced a similar loss, I'm so sorry. Take care of yourselves. About therapy, yes, I'm aware that what I'm feeling is not healthy and that I need therapy. The problem is that it's hard to find a good therapist where I live. My school wouldn't be of any use, for sure. The closest thing to a therapist that I have easy access to would be the church counselor, but I don't think he'd be particularly suited to help me. But I do intend on going to therapy when I'm on my own and can afford it. About other family I could go live with, sorry, but that's not an option. My father's side of the family agree with him on everything, and have told me things like, your mother is not here anymore, why should you care about what she would think? And concerning my mother's side of the family, I've kinda lost contact with them. Soon after my mom died, my dad had a very nasty fight with my maternal grandparents and forbid them from contacting me, and me from contacting them. About my plans for the future, right now my only plan is to wait until I'm 18, then go to college and never come back. I've been working after school to save some money, that I hope will help me keep going for a while. Once I do, I'm not planning on speaking to anyone from my father's family. Perhaps I'll try to get in touch with my mother's family, if they still want me to. It'll suck having to wait, but I believe I can deal with it. By the way, why should I pray to a goblin king? And what do goblins have to do with this? Thank you for your comments, even the ones that were critical of me. Stories number 30. Aita for not apologizing to my stepmom and bringing up that I think her and my dad's expectations were unfair to me and my sister. I, 17M, have a twin sister Robin, 17F. Our mom died when we were 6. Our dad started dating again when we were 7 and we met our stepmom when we were 8. When my dad and stepmom were talking about moving in together and getting married, they asked me and Robin how we felt about it and what worries we had. We both said we didn't want things to change a lot. That we liked going to our grandparents after school until Dad picked us up after work and we didn't want that to stop. That we didn't want it to mean we'd have a new mom. We were worried Dad would stop talking about Mom and we'd have to stop talking about her too. They told us we didn't have to see our stepmom as our new mom and we didn't need to stop going to our grandparents and that it worked out good since our stepmom worked too. They asked if we'd be okay with her picking us up some days and we said we were okay with that. We talked about what we'd call our stepmom and we both wanted to use her name. She told us there was no pressure but if we ever wanted to call her some kind of mom name she'd love that. Dad assured us we'd still spend time with him. After they got married Dad talked to us again and asked where we'd want to be if something happened and he couldn't take care of us. We said our grandparents. Dad told us he figured and that was always the plan but it was good to know it didn't need to change. We had a pretty good relationship with our stepmom. It wasn't like TV usually shows where we eventually started to see her as our new or second mom and started calling her some mom name. It wasn't a thing where we told Dad we'd want to be with her if something happened to him, or where our half-siblings being born changed how we saw her or felt about her. But we were never reality show levels of bad either where we hated her and wanted nothing to do with her. There weren't epic tantrums or anything. 2 years ago Dad got into a really bad accident and he was in hospital for 4 months and in a rehab place for 3 more months. When that happened we went to live with our grandparents. At the time we weren't even sure Dad would get better or survive. And we wanted to be with our grandparents. Our stepmom didn't say anything at the time but we did have to call our half-siblings pretty frequently and stop by the house to show them we weren't just gone forever. But it was tough because we felt more at home with our grandparents and needed them but our half-siblings really begged for us. Dad got better and came home and we moved back home too. But after a few months of us all being home things were weird. My dad told us one day that my stepmom wanted the 4 of us to go to therapy together and talk things through. This stuff took a while. It was super hard to find a decent therapist and the wait lists were crazy. But we started therapy in January. I won't go into every single detail but my stepmom is hurt that we moved out when Dad had the accident and she wants us to apologize for not staying. But my dad and her also said that they had expected we'd actually stay when faced with something like that. They didn't think after all this time we'd actually move in with our grandparents. She said we destroyed the family unit when we did it because our half-siblings were hurt and so was she and that it made everything worse. Dad said he just assumed after some time that if anything happened we'd stay where we were and he said it was hard to see our stepmoms so broken up about the fact we didn't. They said they had expected us to gradually feel way different and my stepmom said it was a wake-up call that we don't consider her our actual parent and she had expected that we secretly did and expected that it would grow over the years. She said an apology would be a good start to fixing things. I didn't apologize and neither did Robin but when asked by the therapist I said I thought my dad and stepmom's expectations were unfair to me and Robin because it meant all the stuff we talked about was really for nothing. I said it put us in a bad place because they never asked if we'd changed how we felt or would do it different than we said before. The therapist asked my dad and stepmom to address it and she asked them some questions. My dad said after therapy that it felt like I had wanted to shame them for being honest and he said an apology wasn't a lot to ask for and me and Robin not rushing to do it said we didn't care about the hurt our choice caused. Stories number 31. Aita for being upset that my husband of 18 years left me alone at the hospital when I was bleeding internally. Advice needed. TLDR, my husband left me alone at the hospital when I had internal bleeding and may have needed surgery. I'm really not happy with how things went down last weekend so I thought I'd scream into the void and see if the void screams back. I don't have any friends I could talk to about this. I, 43F, had severe abdominal pain in the lower right side of my abdomen on a Saturday night, so bad that I thought about going to the ER, but I'm slightly phobic about hospitals and ER visits are expensive so I didn't. It ended up feeling somewhat better by the next morning, so I put it out of my mind and was just careful, thinking I had pulled a muscle or something. 2 days later I found massive purple bruises on my stomach, very near where the random pain had been still was, which of course freaked me TF out. I first went to my OBGYN in case my IUD had slipped and perforated something, but my IUD was fine, and no ovarian cysts rupturing going on. She sent me to my primary care. After tons of poking and prodding, painfully I might add, she sent me directly to the ER, even going so far as to call the head nurse in the ER to tell them I was coming and what my symptoms were. Her thought was that it was appendicitis, even though I had no nausea or other symptoms of that. Long story short, after scans, labs and testing was done, I have a hematoma of the rectal sheath, rip in the abdominal wall outside the colon, and the bruises were caused by it bleeding internally. I went to the ER about 11:30 to noon on Friday and spent the next 10-ish hours there before a room opened up for me and I was admitted. They weren't sure if I was going to need surgery to correct it, and no one had any idea what caused this so the concern of more other internal bleeding was big. My husband, 49M, was at work at the time. My husband picked up my 7 years old from school at 3 p.m. and went home. His mom is retired, alone, husband passed April 2024, and loves to spend time with the kids. I also have a 23F, but he didn't ask her to pick up our son or watch him so my husband could sit with me. He waited until 7:30 p.m. to bring me food in the ER. I hadn't eaten all day cause I was fasting to do blood work at my primary care appointment, stayed with me for about 30 minutes and went home again. At that point I still wasn't sure if I needed surgery so I couldn't eat or drink anything after midnight. The next day I didn't see him until after my food-drink intake was permitted again so about 11:30 a.m. or so. My hospital lunch was delivered about 20 minutes after he arrived, and he left after my doctor gave his update. He missed the oncologist and hematologist though. I had to deal with that terrifying prospect alone. My mom died of leukemia when I was 15. He wasn't very happy with the doctor, which I totally get. The doc was really off-putting and borderline unprofessional, asking if my husband hit me to both of us, in the same room, after being asked this exact question at least 20 times, by several different hospital staff prior to this. I was even asked if there was anyone I wanted to restrict from the hospital and said no, but he kept harping on it and was visibly angry, but he insisted he wasn't mad at me. I get that it was offensive, but I didn't understand why that took precedence over what was going on with my health and mental well-being. This was my first time being a patient in a hospital, besides when my 2 kids were born, and my prior experience with hospitals was anything but pleasant. Between my mom's cancer and daughter's medical issues from birth until age 12, I spent way too much time there already. He kept bringing the doctor's comment up, then complained that the chaplain came by after me saying I didn't want the chaplain. I'm pagan, freaked him out a bit when he came by, but that's another story, then got mad about the amount the hospital was charging the insurance company. Not what they were charging us, what they charged the insurance. I felt like the whole time I was in there, all he did was act upset and angry and, though he kept saying he wasn't mad at me, I felt like it was all about him and his feelings. I finally got to drive myself home from the hospital about 3:30 p.m. on Monday, so it was almost 4 days in the hospital. My husband came 3 of the 4 days and stayed about 20 to 30 minutes each day. He's off weekends by the way, and missed every doctor except that one. When I got home, I got a shower to wash off the stink of disinfectant and then it was straight back to normal, as though I had never been gone. My son gave me a hug, and then ran off. Fine, he's 7. My husband played video games until dinner, then ate and helped with some of the dishes. No, let me do that. You're not supposed to be exerting yourself or, sit down and I'll take care of dinner. You just got out of the hospital. Nothing. I'm worried about my future. Is this a picture of what my life may be like in the future? Cancer is rampant in both sides of my family, all kinds, so I guess that means I'll be doing chemo alone, and probably going to die alone in a hospital bed at some point. I'm trying to move forward, but I also feel some resentment towards him, whatever happened to, in sickness and in health. I can't help but feel let down by him. I was all alone in a scary place, not knowing what was wrong or what was going to happen to me, and he couldn't be bothered to come sit with me, keep me company, help stop my freakouts or support me. Not once did he tell me, it's okay, you'll be okay, we'll get through this. Instead it seemed like it was all about his frustrations and feelings. So now I'm conflicted. Maybe I was being selfish. It's not like he could actually do anything to help me there and he was with our son. But where do you draw the line between selfishness and need for help? Aita for wanting my husband to be more supportive during my time in the hospital. Update, wow. I really didn't think I'd get more than a couple comments but I really appreciate everyone who took the time to comment. I'm going to try to reply to comments tomorrow, cause I admit I was overwhelmed by the amount of responses and I was also trying to work at the same time. I really appreciate all the feedback, even those who called me MAH, cause many of you were right, I should have been more clear about my needs and feelings. Shout out to Thestral Breeder for helping with verbiage to use when I talk with my husband. I've worked call centers all my life and know the difference between I statements and you statements, but in the moment in personal life, it's hard. Edit to clarify a few points that keep coming up. 1. I saw the surgeon Friday afternoon, and he restricted my food drink starting at midnight day night and lasting until I got my second CT scan the next day, around mid-morning, to confirm my hematoma wasn't seeping or getting bigger. 2. No, I didn't specifically ask him to stay, and yes that's my bad. I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't want to deal with him rolling his eyes at me and saying, fine, I guess I'll stay, in an irritated and put out tone. Cause then I wouldn't have wanted him to stay, he would just have had a negative attitude that I didn't want to deal with at the time. Yes, he's done this before with other things, just nothing as serious. 3. My daughter is 23, but has some development delays, and doesn't pick up on cues very well. I know I'm making some excuses for her, but she was the last one to see her grandpa in the hospital before he passed and it really impacted her. Last year we lost my dad, my husband's stepdad, and her dog, who she loved and doted on like a kid. She's petrified of loss at this point and I am her rock. I also have to admit, I'm not used to leaning on my kids in any way. 4. My husband did not, nor has he ever hit me. I didn't fall, have an accident or have any physical trauma. I totally get why the doctors asked me about abuse, though I didn't realize until today that asking in front of the potential abuser was another tactic to find out the truth. I do get that. 5. Yes, this is a pattern. He repeatedly has stated his opinions as facts. He is not a very empathetic person, and we have been working on that. I try telling him that not everyone thinks or feels exactly like he does, and his opinion isn't fact or gospel truth. He also doesn't really believe in therapy or mental health issues. I have severe depression, general anxiety, and borderline OCD, according to my shrink. I'm not a doctor, and his reaction to me telling him I'm depressed was, well, I get sad sometimes too. 6. He loves his son. He and my daughter have a somewhat complicated relationship since they butt heads a lot, but he's been a way better father figure than my ex, so much more involved in her life and adopted her as an adult. Her bio dad wouldn't agree to the adoption prior, even though he wouldn't even talk to my daughter. 7. When I gave birth to our son, he was there while I was in labor, and there through the entire birth process. However, once we were out of the labor and delivery area and in a private room, he just assumed he would go back home and see me sometime the next day. I had to convince him to stay with my son and I for the next couple of days in the hospital. Update, Aita for being upset that my husband of 18 years left me alone at the hospital when I was bleeding internally. Dr. I talked with my husband about his lack of support and caring during my hospital stay. He got mad and then ignored the whole convo, as though it never happened. For those interested enough to want to follow up, here goes, and please, if possible be kind, I've got a lot on my head right now. So I finally talked to my husband about my hospital stay and it didn't go well. Admittedly, I didn't pick the best time to talk and said things in anger. I wouldn't take back anything I said and I wasn't mean or cruel in how I delivered it, but I wish I had picked a better time so that he was in a better mindset to receive the info. We were talking about an upcoming medical appointment for my daughter, and I said that we'd be leaving at X time the next day. His response, "You're taking her. Don't you have to work?" Yes. Yes, I do, so I'm going to have to call in absent because she is getting meds that won't allow her to drive home and this is a traumatic experience so she needs support. We already asked her bestie and her grandma, both have uncancelable things going on. Him, well, I can take her. Me, really? It could take all day, you're cool with that? Him, ranting for a while about how she can just get dropped off, she's an adult and it's her problem. Me, again, I am totally admitting this was not the best way to bring to these topics, yes, because not only will she need a ride home, but she needs the support. Like I needed support in the hospital. But you weren't there. I had to do it alone. Him, what was I supposed to do? Just a sit there. Me, no, you could have reassured me, you could have held my hand so I wasn't freaking out so much, or just talked to me so my thoughts didn't spiral. What if I had bled out and they needed consent to operate? You weren't there to give it. Instead you were there 20 to 30 minutes at most and pissed every visit. Some people need emotional support. Him, scoffs. Me, well, at least I know what to expect for the future. I'll be going to chemo appointments alone, sitting in my hospital bed nursing home, alone and dying alone. 'Cause being there for me or anyone inconveniences you. Him, a bunch of childish BS, okay, S and whatever, S. Then proceeds to act like nothing happened and immediately fall asleep, even though I have visibly red puffy eyes from crying. Unfortunately, divorce isn't really an option for me financially or logistically. I can't uproot my kids. Yes, my daughter is 23, but with her current job and housing costs in my area, there's no way she can afford her own place, and my son has great connections in our neighborhood. My only viable plan to go to would be to move to the other side of the country because that's where my only support is. I'd have to quit my job, pull my kid out of school and move, if courts would even allow it. So until my son reaches an appropriate age, I'm staying with the expectation that I don't have a husband, I have a roommate with occasional benefits. I'm changing my will and my POA to my sister, but that's the most I can do at this time. For additional clarity, my mom passed when I was 16, and dad passed last January, though we weren't close at the time. For my biological family, I talked to one sister and my paternal aunt. Otherwise, I'm an orphan. I'm fairly close with my MIL, enough to the point where she commiserates with me about my husband's behavior. He's a lot like his dad, who she divorced years ago. Lastly, for anyone who wanted a medical update, I've got an appointment with the hematologist-oncologist coming up, but it'll be a while. The worst of my bruises are finally fading and the rest are gone completely. I'm feeling better every day, but if I move too fast and or clench my abdominal muscles, I get a nasty pinch. I keep forgetting to take it easy with lifting and bending, but it's not bad. mild enough that an ice pack and a couple ibuprofen take care of the worst of it. Luckily my job has been amazing and letting me work from home even on in-office days. They really have been super caring and supportive. So again, thank you to everyone who commented or DM'd me. It really helped me to see past my husband's callous reaction and that it wasn't an unreasonable request to ask him to stay with me. It's been an eye-opening experience and honestly I'm really sad that after all these years, I can't count on my partner. Stories number 32. My faith in the current youth was absolutely demolished today at the barbershop. Today I was getting my quarterly haircut. I wish I was less lazy and did it more often as it turns me from a monster into a decent-looking human being. At the very end of my haircut 3 young boys come in, about 12 to 13 years old. The barbers were like, "Oh. The kids are back again." They had apparently been there before. They were immediately loud and obnoxious, but the barbers weren't kicking them out and I found out why. They came in without an appointment and the barbers told them, "You have to make an appointment." They went out and locked up their $600 e-bikes and then came back in with 5 other friends. So now there are 8 boys about 12 to 13 years old. And one of them looked like the spitting, fucking, image of Jack Doherty. He literally looked like a 12 to 13-year-old version with the same haircut and personality. He ended up offering his friends $20 bucks at first to buzz their hair, then $40, then $50, then $100 depending on how low they'd get their hair cut. It was like, nuts to me. This prepubescent child was offering multiple hundreds of dollars to his friends to cut their hair. It was obvious they were chasing social media clout considering how many pictures the kids were taking of themselves, before and afters. But it was disgusting how this kid was throwing away the equivalent of a full-time paycheck for some people just to have his friends embarrass themselves. That's when I just broke. I feel for these kids. All of them were like mini Jack Dohertys and had an Andrew Tate feel to them. My faith in today's youth broke today and it sucks. Edit, I'm 36 years old. I messaged my parent on a pager and texted with my friends in high school using a number pad. I'm not a boomer, I'm a millennial. And yes, this was extra sad to witness in real time as a person that has seen the transition from real life to social media. Yes, it sucked. Edit 2. Why the barbers weren't kicking these kids out is because the main kid was paying the barbers several hundreds of dollars to service them. Money speaks, I guess. Stories number 33. Aita for not telling my friend, 17F, I wasn't buying her a ticket because we didn't want her parents and 11-year-old sister to come to the ballet with us, 17F. So, I wanted to go watch a ballet with a friend of mine who's really into it. We go to school together and have a group of 6 friends, so naturally, we asked everyone if they wanted to come along. They all said no, except for one of them, let's call her Cassie. Now, here's the thing about Cassie, her parents are super strict and controlling because she's lied to them a few times in the past, and they found out. Because of that, they barely let her go anywhere. For example, our whole group can't even hang out at a shopping mall because they won't let her go, so we always end up at someone's house instead. We've talked about it a few times when she's not around, and honestly, we're all kind of tired of always hanging out in the same places. But no one really says anything because they don't like conflict. I'm usually the only one to speak up when something bothers me. Anyway, Cassie said she wanted to go to the ballet with us and asked me to buy tickets for the 3 of us, promising to pay me back. I agreed and said I'd do it as soon as I got home since tickets were selling out fast. About an hour before classes ended for the day, she mentioned that her parents and sister wanted to come along. I had a feeling it was because they wanted to keep an eye on her and if they didn't come, they'd never let her go. I said it was okay but then I thought about it and asked my friend if she'd be okay with Cassie's parents coming too. She immediately said no, that we just wanted a girls' night out without any parents around. I agreed. So, we called Cassie over to where we were sitting and tried to explain that we didn't feel comfortable having her parents come with us. We really wanted to figure out a way for her to still come along, but as soon as we brought it up, she got really hostile. She just turned away and started talking to someone else, totally ignoring us. My friend and I decided that since I was the one buying the tickets, I'd just get 2 and not tell her anything until she asked. I'm seeing Cassie on Monday and I'm sure she'll get really hysterical when she finds out. Update, since many of you were curious about Cassie's parents. After reading your comments, I thought more about it, and honestly, I think their reasons for being strict are pretty legit. Without going into too much detail, Cassie has lied to them a lot. We're talking hundreds of times about where she's been and who she was with, even back when she was just 13. So it's not so much about them being controlling, it's more about trust. In fact, they're much more lenient with their younger daughter, she's 11, because she's always honest with them. As for the safety concerns some of you mentioned, we actually live in a pretty safe area. My parents even offered to give us a ride to the theater so we wouldn't have to take the bus, and the theater itself is on the most crowded street around. So it wasn't really about security either. Stories number 34. To fool by buying what I thought was coffee creamer. For context, I am an absolute sucker for anything with a seasonal flavor. I make apple cakes for family using boiled cider in the fall. It's not available pre-made in my country, so I reduce fresh unfiltered apple juice for about 3 hours with some spices until it's about a honey consistency. I added it to coffee and cocktails just to see what it was like. It's fantastic and I find myself craving apple coffee often but am not willing to spend 3 hours simmering down juice. I found a few coffeehouse where I can get apple lattes. They're only available from September through December and thus not in prime iced coffee seasons, a tragedy. So I bought a few pre-made syrups and they were all disgusting. Either sickly sweet, too artificial, or uncomfortably tart. Imagine my joy when I found out my favorite fake milk brand made an apple creamer that was actually good. Really, really good. Unfortunately it's hard to find and disappears by mid-November. Plus the bottles are pretty small. It lasts until February though, so I tend to stock up. It's mid-February and I've just finished my last bottle of creamer. I decide to try my local grocery outlet, a chain that mostly sells food that's overstock or out of season stuff. I find my creamer. And it's in a big bottle. I've never seen this size before, but maybe it's like a Costco size. I buy 3 bottles because it doesn't go bad until June. I happily make my daily iced coffee and drink it as I do my morning activities. It's delightful and I keep doing this for a few days. Sometimes even making myself a second coffee because this batch is better than normal, until one morning I skip breakfast and while painting realize my hands are shaking. I shrug it off as just one of my health issues acting up. Until it happens again. And again. When I go to throw out the first bottle I look at it again as I peel off the label to recycle the bottle. It is not creamer. It is pre-made latte. I have been adding coffee to my coffee. Where normally I add creamer, ice, and water to my Keurig small setting, I've just been adding this and ice because it isn't as sweet and doesn't need watering down. I've been at least doubling my caffeine intake. TLDR, the creamer I've been adding to my coffee is actually a pre-made latte and I've been unknowingly doubling my caffeine intake. Stories number 35. 30 years you didn't listen and now you want to help. We 58F, 57M have been married almost 30 years. For our entire relationship, I have been trying to avoid getting to where we are now and I failed. I've tried non-violent communication, therapy, religion, meditation, nothing helped. I have been letting my partner treat me poorly all these years and I am done with it. I'm ashamed that I have been so weak as not to stand up for myself. He doesn't see the lack of respect and it's a battle to get him to admit that something he did was disrespectful. An example is that he would get home from work and if there was a toy or bike in the way, he would honk the horn until I came out and moved it. I was such a fucking doormat. I am done letting him treat me like shit, so fuck you for going to Egypt without me. I have been trying to improve our marriage for 30 years. I have been to a ton of therapy. He doesn't go because I am the one with the problem. Now that I am done with you, now you're willing to work on things. Fuck you. I deserve to be treated like a queen, not a slave. Stories number 36. Aita for taking back my niece's birthday gift and giving it to her brother instead. So my 32F favorite niece, 14F, is having her birthday this Sunday. I decided to buy her a nice Android phone worth about $400 using my credit card, thinking she could use it for school, communication, and social media. I was genuinely excited to give it to her, expecting she'd be happy. At first, she was excited too, until she saw the phone. Her reaction. Why this? I wanted an iPhone, auntie. She then told me that most of her friends and classmates have iPhones. That stung, but I told her if she gets good grades next semester, maybe we can talk about it. She just said, okay. I thought that was the end of it, but as I was about to leave, I overheard her complaining, this is so lame. I wish she just got me an iPhone. She even slammed something on the table in frustration. That honestly hurt because I worked hard to get her a decent phone, even more expensive than what I personally use. I ignored her messages after that because I needed time to cool off. The next day, I finally checked her messages. She apologized, but still insisted that she really wanted an iPhone. That's when I made a decision. I went to their house and asked for the phone back. She thought I was going to replace it with an iPhone, but I told her if she really wanted one, she could save up for it, get a part-time job, or use her allowance. She sometimes does live selling of K-pop merch with her friends, and they use their earnings to go to fancy cafes, so I know she can save if she wants to. Meanwhile, her younger brother, 10M, who's a consistently high-achieving student, walked by, greeted me politely, and jokingly said, "Wow, new phone. Nice, wish I had one." That made me laugh, and in the moment, I just handed him the phone and asked if he wanted it. He thought I was joking at first, but when he realized I was serious, he got so excited. He even said, "I'll pay you back when I grow up and get a job. Just don't be impatient, okay?" I laughed and told him he didn't have to. He thanked me a bunch of times and immediately asked if he could install Mobile Legends, but promised he'd still focus on school. I told him that was fine. I stepped away to talk to my sister, their mom, about my niece's behavior, and she apologized, saying she'd talk to her. When I mentioned I gave the phone to her son instead, she seemed a bit surprised and said I didn't need to give him something that expensive, he would have been happy with a much cheaper one. But I told her it was fine. As I was leaving, I walked past the living room and saw my nephew happily playing on his new phone, completely absorbed in his game. His sister sat next to him, sulking. I even heard him casually say, "Auntie is so nice, she gave me a phone. I think it's expensive too." Completely unaware of how bitter his sister looked beside him. At that moment, I felt a mix of amusement and guilt. I didn't intend to be petty, I just didn't think it was right for her to act so entitled over a gift. But now I wonder if I overreacted by taking it back instead of just letting her deal with her disappointment. I don't regret giving it to my nephew, though. He was genuinely grateful, and I know he'll appreciate and take care of it. Still, I can't help but feel a little bad seeing my niece sulking. Maybe she'll learn from this, or maybe I should have handled it differently. So, Aita. Stories number 37. Aita for not also ordering takeout for my boyfriend. Me, 28F, and my BF, 31M, live together. We often cook shared meals or get takeout for each other. I woke up after passing out after the end to a long overtime week, woke up to him cooking a steak dinner. He was cooking it for himself. Whatever, I'll figure something out. Then my parents called me to catch up and surprise